Greetings, my fellow Americans. This is your President Samuel Ronan speaking, and today is Worldwide Wednesdays. And in typical fashion, I have forgotten to do something with relation to the stream. But there is good news. The computer, Compita, as Anna recommend, folks, she is actually going to be back with us. But because, I'm still working for capitalism, I'm not going to be able to pick her up until this weekend, but then we will be back to our normal glory where I'm staring here and here instead of here, which, looking at the screen and looking down at you guys, like, it feels like I'm like one of those shitty, I don't have anything to read off of, but I feel like I'm one of those shitty, famous people that are just reading off a script, like, and then I'm supposed to make a quip, and then I'm supposed to look at the camera and smile, and then we're going to talk more about international news and events. Okay, all right, guys, I think I got this. Wait, got to check the notes again. I apologize. We are doing with what we can, and quite frankly, I'm very pleased with the fact that this laptop is working as a backup. I genuinely did not think this would work in any capacity, let alone as a backup. So, with that being said, hello, Anna. I think, my God. See, wait a second, 65%, scale to 100%. Oh, that made it worse. That made it much worse. Anyway, I think if I tried zooming in, it would make the screen smaller in the... Anyway, doesn't matter. We're going to talk about Worldwide Wednesdays. We have our playlist ready to go. And, of course, one of our top stories is the fact that Al Jazeera has officially been murdered, and the last vestige of Al Jazeera has been murdered in Palestine. Just the off-the-top facts. The Israeli genocide of Palestine has been the number one cause for journalist death, not just per year, but in general. World War II only had like 67 deaths throughout all of World War II from journalists. And the Vietnam War only had 66. Or was it 65? It was something in the 60s. And all of Vietnam, for the entire 20 years that conflict raged on, only 65 journalists were murdered during that entire conflict. And in Palestine, Israel has murdered over 200 in just under 2 years. So when you really think about that, when you really put that into context, this is the most brutal, violent conflict of the modern era. Since the Industrial Revolution, since these kinds of things were even tracked, right? I don't know that there were journalists in the Civil War. I don't know that there's a statistic to keep up with that. There were obviously murders during the Rwanda genocide and apartheid in South Africa, and even that was less than Vietnam, World War II, and now Palestine. So definitely something that we need to cover, something that we really need to hit home, that this is not normal. Journalists dying in conflict is not normal. It is definitely not commonplace. And to have so many die in such a short time span is egregious and is a testament to how absolutely vile and brutal the Israeli government and military are. So we also have, we have a lot about that, it would seem. The more allegations, Anas al-Sharif, that was his allegations. There's proof and evidence to support that. More atrocity. Apparently the first dozen of these are the atrocities regarding Israel and Gaza. There is an ICC case going against Israel, which is picking up steam, thank God. People rallying in support of Gaza across the globe, not just in Middle Eastern countries or pro-Muslim countries, but also Malaysia and Chile and Argentina. Of course, Chile and Argentina being very prominent South American countries who have had their own histories of revolution and oppression. My God, well, New York City's going into it, so that's good at least. Vigil held in Mexico City. South Africa's Cape Town is even one of the largest victims of genocide and apartheid in, again, recent history, are standing in solidarity with Gaza as well. Just an absolute... From the first couple dozen videos are basically going to be covering that, and then we start getting into other global affairs. So, not a gentle day at all, but the good news is that a lot of these videos are also showing solidarity, even though for Gazans, it is for Palestinians generally, the writing is already on the wall, because once starvation sets in to the degree of you're dying from it, the damage that is being done to the body due to starvation is so acute that even if you were fed and watered, you would need 24/7 intensive care with all sorts of other medical support required just to perhaps survive. It's not even a guarantee at that point. So we will be seeing many more of these videos as the weeks progress, and especially if the countries do not force Israel's hands in releasing aid, which is, I did not see that anywhere in these videos, that any of the countries have forced Israel's hand yet. So we will just continue to live stream and discuss the slow murder and starvation of Palestinians. And I need to add our title for this video, which is going to, I'm going to say, focus on that. Al Jazeera lost their last journalist on the ground in Gaza. The world mourns as Gaza deliberately, as Gaza is starved. And I hate having to even say these words and read them and write them. But such is the world that we live in. The signs of our times, as it were.
This feels almost illegal to know, but our windows were so old and just desperate.
And then we get these shitty ass fucking ads that completely kill it all. Hey guys, good evening, Mr. President. You missed probably one of the most depressing introductions I've ever done to a stream, so you're probably doing a lot better now than we are. But we're gonna kick it off, and we're gonna get through this.
This is Al Jazeera breaking news just coming out. Sad breaking news out of Gaza, where Al Jazeera journalist Anas al-Sharif has just been killed in what appears to be a targeted Israeli strike. All of this according to the director of the Al-Shifa hospital. Anas was killed after a tent for journalists was hit outside the main gate of the hospital. The well-known Al Jazeera correspondent reported extensively from northern Gaza. The 28-year-old was a key source.
Wow, so I don't know if you've been reading the red scrolling banner, but at least 217 Palestinians, including 100 children, have starved to death in Gaza as well, due to the Israeli blockade. So the famine, the death, the manufactured starvation is happening, and it has already been 217 people, and that's what's been reported, which now we have significantly less eyes on the ground, which means these numbers are probably much, much higher, and they are only going to accelerate as this atrocity continues unabated.
Source of news from Gaza City and the north for international audiences since Israel's war on the Strip.
Yeah, it's not getting any better globally, is it?
Al Jazeera Media Network had recently denounced the Israeli military for what it called a campaign of incitement against Anas al-Sharif. Al-Sharif was one of the journalists the Israeli military accused of being a member of Hamas's military wing.
See, this is the shit. I'm sorry, but at this point, Israel blaming and accusing everyone that they decide to murder as being a member of Hamas. Our stream, our community has been pro-Hamas since pretty much the beginning. As soon as this genocide got launched, and as soon as Hamas was accused as being the perpetrators. We were like, there's no fucking way that this ragtag bunch of freedom fighters had the ability to coordinate the logistics for this attack. And then, of course, it's been revealed that it wasn't Hamas that launched the 10/7 attack in the first place, that it was the Hannibal Directive, and that Israel were the ones who perpetrated it. So to say that this journalist is Hamas and therefore was justified to kill, then let's go Hamas. You have another martyr, Hamas. Hamas is the only thing fighting against genocide, and they are the victims of it. Globally, 8 billion people in the world, and the only several thousand or 100 or dozen, however many Hamas people there are, they are the only ones out of the rest of the population of Earth are resisting Israel, are fighting against them, trying to prevent the genocide that is actively engaged and underway. Hamas is fighting back. So to be accused of being Hamas at this point is a badge of honor. It's like, oh, I have resisted Israel propaganda. I have fought back and pushed back against Israeli misinformation, and I've been dubbed Hamas. It's like when a Democrat calls you a Russian bot. It's like when a conservative calls you a woke liberal cuck. To be called Hamas is to be called a human being with the empathy and sympathy to understand that what is happening to these people, to this nation, to this culture that has spanned thousands of years, that I am an ally. By labeling me, labeling him, labeling them, labeling anyone as Hamas, as if that was anything less than a badge of honor, a badge of solidarity, is what the global community should be seeing. But of course they don't. The global community continues to take Israel at their word, probably because of the Epstein files, and God knows what other blackmail Israel has on these world leaders, which is not specifically limited to America as many think, but global leaders are in the palm of Israel's hand, which is why they have acted with such impunity. And the fact that this continues unabated, that there is no pushback for fear of being called Hamas, when Hamas are literally the only ones who are raising their voice, taking up arms against an actual genocidal regime, is insane. It is insane that Hamas is synonymous with terrorism instead of freedom and liberation. And as an American who is running for president, who will be running for Congress, who as an advocate for the American people, for the worker, and for freedom and justice for all, I will proudly stand with Hamas. Loudly and proudly stand with Hamas. Because they are fighting for the right to exist. And there is nothing more honorable than that. Considering, too, that they have gone out of their way to offer their complete disbandment, to turn over all remaining hostages for the simple act of Israel no longer committing genocide against their people. And Israel could not once even humor that proposal. Because Israel does not want an end to the war. The war is the purpose. They want to erase Palestine. Their leadership have said it. Their military have said it. Their politicians have said it. Their religious leaders have said it. Their citizens have said it. Anything to do with Zionism in Israel is synonymous with ethnic cleansing and the eradication of the Palestinian people. And although we have watched, and there are, of course, some Israelis who are protesting against the government, and although the government is accusing Netanyahu of war crimes and are challenging him in the court system, it is far too little, far too late for the Palestinians. And it is clearly not enough to shift public or global opinion. And so the fact that Israel has the temerity, the chutzpah, to then name this man, whom they murdered as the last reporter of Al Jazeera in Gaza City, as Hamas, and that's somehow supposed to justify it, is only further proof of Israel's genocidal intent. They've been wrong and lying about Hamas for 680 days in a row. IDF members confirmed they were told not to patrol the border on 10/7. West Bank is being annexed as well. There is no Hamas in the West Bank. Exactly. And they're being turned into luxury real estate locations, too, in conjunction with this administration, our administration. Not only are the Palestinians being erased from the face of the earth, it's so that their land can be turned into luxury homes for global and Israeli leadership, which is even more disturbing. Even more disturbing than simply taking the lands for natural resources. It's also to turn it into luxury residential property and resorts. And again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Could you possibly imagine if a country took out the entire east or west coast and then bulldozed all of those homes, all of those families, all of those cities, just to turn them into luxury beach resorts? Would you not be outraged? Would you not be filled with disgust and hate for the occupier that did that to you? Well, that would never happen in America because we're America and America. That's not the point. Just because you can't picture it happening doesn't mean that you can just ignore that it is happening. You need to be able to picture that it's happening because that's what empathy is. And if you lack empathy, then you are literally a psychopath. And if we are a nation of psychopaths, then we are doomed no matter who's in charge or what reforms are passed forward. Anas' story was so great. Al Jazeera interviewed him when he was 9 years old, and he said that he wanted to work for Al Jazeera. 15 years later, he became an Al Jazeera reporter. The people of Gaza love him. He's literally a legend in Palestine and the Middle East. Even many Westerners like myself loved him. And his daughter. So they killed him and his daughter, go figure. They targeted the last of the reporters they knew would stay for the total destruction of Gaza City. If there are no journalists, they can't show us what's going on. And that has been part of the problem, especially for Western news sources, is that the fact that there are so little reporters left to even report on what's happening, and the only things that the Western media can report is whatever the Israeli Minister of Propaganda decides to feed to them. Which is why many people think that Hamas are these evil terrorists eating babies and murdering Israeli citizens in their sleep, when it's literally the opposite. It is literally Israeli soldiers who are murdering Palestinians in their sleep. Maybe not eating babies, but absolutely murdering them. Absolutely murdering them. Let me repeat that. The IDF has been credibly accused and reported as murdering babies. And of course, the starvation is indirect murder of babies, children, the elderly, the infirm. I could probably spend weeks talking about the atrocities of what's been going on in Palestine being committed by Israel, and I would be one of thousands of voices doing the same thing. But apparently it's not enough. Because never again was taught to us in school from a lens of never again means if it's Nazis and swastikas in the Jewish population. Yet we've seen it in Rwanda, we've seen it in South Africa, we are seeing it in Palestine, we are seeing it in the streets of New York, the streets of Los Angeles, when ICE is terrorizing Latino communities, kidnapping people off of the streets and trafficking them across God knows where. That is genocide. Those are the first steps of genocide. What we are seeing happening in America are the first steps of genocide. What we are seeing in Palestine is the first time in history where the final solution was able to start being executed. Every other genocide in history has been stopped just short of the final solution. To include Nazi Germany's genocide, the Holocaust. So, what's happening here and now in real time, broadcast in 4K through social media and everything else, is literally the greatest atrocity, the greatest loss of human life, of deliberate murder of a people that we have ever witnessed. And it doesn't even come close. I posted an episode of the Weekly Show podcast. Well, unfortunately, And I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Tylo. Unfortunately, we can't air any of the Daily Show, any of the Tonight Show, any of those kinds of shows, because it instantly gets flagged in the videos as a DACA or copyright or whatever they fucking call it. It's instantly flagged, so we cannot actually review those.
The UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese, has earlier denounced serious threats against the Al Jazeera journalist by the Israeli army. And what's more is the Council for the Protection of Journalists had also been concerned about his safety.
Yeah, I want to be excited.
On the phone.
I want to be excited that they mentioned Francesca. But it's kind of hard to be excited, genuinely excited, when the reason for her name being dropped is because she has to condemn yet another atrocity, and this ongoing atrocity that the world just seems to want to ignore.
From Gaza City. Honey, what do we know?
With Lucid,
really? We're getting ads within ads now? That's outstanding.
Need to run agile events with a...
This is perhaps the hardest thing I'm reporting about for the past 22 months. I'm not far from the Shifa house, just 1 block away, and I could hear the massive explosion that took place in the past half an hour or so near a Shifa house. I could see it when it lit up the sky, and just within moments the news circulated. It was the journalist tent at the main gate of the Shifa hospital. At this particular time of the night, it calms down. All the journalists gather in one area, try to either talk to each other, help each other to survive these conditions, when a drone strike hit the tent, killing Anas al-Sharif and his colleague Muhammad Tariq. Both are correspondents of Al Jazeera Arabic on the ground. They have been reporting on the atrocities of the Israeli military, the airstrikes, the enforced starvation and dehydration, all of these past months. It's important to highlight this attack just a week after an Israeli military official directly accused Anas and directly ran a campaign of incitement on Al Jazeera and correspondents on the ground because of their work, because of their relentless reporting on the starvation and the famine and the malnutrition, because they're bringing the truth to the screen for everyone. And just a week after that statement was made by a prominent Israeli military official, it got translated on the ground, and practically by targeting this tent and killing 2 of the most prominent journalists on the ground, in doing reports on everything that happened from the opening week of this genocide till today. The last report that was done today on the ongoing enforced starvation and dehydration and the famine that is spreading everywhere across the Gaza Strip. And Muhammad and many other people who were in the tent, we were literally looking at footage that were circulating of bodies scattered in the area, of people who took care of logistics, of coordinators on the ground, drivers who were at the site when the attack happened.
I didn't want to interrupt that because, for the obvious reasons, this was somebody who was obviously quite familiar with this circumstance and knew the guy and is able to talk about the situation that's on the ground. But suffice to say, I mean, this man is obviously a legend. He will be remembered. We will make sure to remember him. Anna, not to sound like this is an afterthought or something that we haven't done already, but I want to make it imperative that we have something on our website to highlight that not only are we going to condemn Israel and send them straight to the fucking Hague, and then be present when they are given the noose, and we will watch them struggle as they die for their actions, but we also want to make sure that we celebrate Palestine and that we celebrate the heroes who were murdered in service to the cause of the Palestinian people. So I know there isn't something like that on the website yet. I know there is, I condemn Israel in the harshest terms possible, but I don't think I necessarily put something about pro-Palestine, so, or remembrance for that matter. So if you could, and then, you know, we'll, like that video that you just added at the bottom, those are the kinds of things that we're going to want to do. We're going to want to have memorials, remembrances of the journalists that were killed, especially if there is videos or anything that we can remember them by, and you know, maybe even highlight a few of their biggest articles or accolades or whatever else, because I'm deeply concerned that by the time we make it into Congress, let alone the White House, I am deeply concerned that it will be too late. And the only option we will have at that point is memoriam. And of course, accountability for those who committed the crimes, but for the fallen, for those who lost their lives, their homes, and their everything, it'll be far too late and far too little. So whatever we can do, as shallow as it may sound, we must do. And I know our campaign will focus on that, and I know our efforts will continue to focus on that, but we are not quite far enough yet to where our voices will make a dent in the national, let alone international communities. I think we're going to watch that next, though. That video that you added, I think we want to watch that next. Largely because let's celebrate the man. Let's not talk about his death and the cruelty and the horrors of him being murdered. Let's talk about who the man was and what he has done.
If you're anywhere here in Ohio, get rid of your
and celebrate that, and not give Israel more platform to spread their hate.
The Al Jazeera reporter who became known as the voice of Gaza. He was killed by Israel late on Sunday night, alongside fellow Al Jazeera reporter Mohammed Qreqa and their cameramen Mu'min Alewa, Mohammed Norfal, and Ibrahim Zahir. Israel killed these journalists in a direct airstrike on a tent they worked from in Gaza City, which was clearly marked and known to be for journalists. Directing attacks against journalists is a violation of international humanitarian law and also constitutes a war crime. Tributes poured in immediately for these journalists who were admired across the globe. 28-year-old Anas Asharif from the Jabalia refugee camp in North Gaza became one of the most prominent reporters in the Gaza Strip. He bravely reported non-stop on what Palestinians in Gaza have been forced to endure under Israel's suffocating blockade, genocidal war, and systematic starvation. Anas and his colleagues in North Gaza were at times the only reporters able to relay what the Israeli army was doing to the Jabalia refugee camp and surrounding areas. Destroying entire Palestinian neighborhoods and emptying the camps of their residents. At times, these scenes they reported on in the aftermath of Israeli attacks left them in shock and speechless. But despite this, they vowed to continue their coverage. Over the course of the war, they witnessed and reported on their family members, friends, and colleagues being targeted and killed by Israeli forces. Anas had to report on his father's killing as he received the news live on air, after Israel directly struck his family home. His 65-year-old father was an old sheikh in the Jabalia refugee camp, and Israel killed him after threatening Anas's life if he did not stop reporting. Anas also mourned the killing of his colleague and close friend, 27-year-old Ismail al-Ghul, after Ismail was targeted by an Israeli airstrike on a car clearly marked as press. Mohammed Qreqa was a calm and eloquent reporter who powered on through the Israeli attacks and crimes he reported on.
لكل شخص في غزة قصة طويلة من ألم الفقد والحرمان والوجع.
He called on the world outside the Gaza Strip to be moved enough by what they see to stop Israel in its tracks and bring an end.
I don't know how videos like this can exist and not go viral. Only 42,000 views. I don't know how videos like this can exist, not go viral, and then not be used as evidence in the United Nations, in the parliamentarian chambers of the UK, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Ireland, Scotland, Greece, whatever country, Congress, right? Canada, Mexico. I don't understand how videos like this can exist. Hundreds of these videos, thousands of these videos. Each and every single murder of each and every single reporter or press employee is a war crime. It is a crime against humanity. One is enough, should be enough, to execute the person who ordered it or who allowed it to happen. One. And there are over 200 journalists and reporters and press workers who have been murdered by Israel in this genocide. And it is always heavily documented. Always. And it's the fact that Israel even threatened their family members and then carried out the threats. Like, fine, you're not going to stop doing it, then we're going to murder your dad. That is literally a war crime. There is no rules of engagement, laws of ardent conflict that allows any soldier in any military, in any government, in any country, anywhere in the world that allows kidnapping, blackmail, torture, and murder to accomplish a military goal. That's not legal anywhere. And it is widely reported that Israel has done this. Widely reported. And the fact that somehow that truth gets ignored, lost, buried, crushed, hindered in whatever way, whether from social media, the platforms themselves, or the news. Never mind, of course, the complicit government officials. The people ask, how can you be so supportive of Palestinians and Hamas? All you have to do is listen. All you have to do is pay attention to what is happening over there. That's it. All you have to do is watch and listen to what is happening over there, and there is only one possible choice to make after hearing and seeing and reading about the crimes that Israel is committing. That Israel is the bad guy. They have always been the bad guy, and they have been the bad guy since their inception. And the fact that they have such a stranglehold on Western society is extremely disturbing and deeply concerning, and should be grounds for revolution in every Western country, not just the United States. They are all people, entire generations living under occupation and wiped out, erased, and destroyed. How many artists, modern math and science both came from this region? Actually, I think we did do a video before on, like, Palestinians did have modern breakthroughs that they discovered first. I think mostly in medicine. I don't necessarily know about math per se, or like maybe even a couple in engineering. But the Palestinian academic sector actually did have global impact and has immediately been erased. I mean, there's no vestige of it anymore. The journalists and the bloodiest conflict for journalists in history. Exactly. I mean, you want to talk about soldiers in the war. I mean, journalists are normally not soldiers in any war, and yet they have been the frontline fighters, fighting the greatest enemy, which is disinformation. Just reporting the truth as it was, as it is, as it remains. We have to celebrate the people and the heroes of Palestine, 100%. It cannot wait until 2028. It definitely can't. It honestly can't wait until 2027 either, but hopefully between then and now, we have enough steam and momentum that we can make some sort of national, if not international, waves. That's why they had to say that Anas was Hamas. Yeah. But again, accusing somebody of being Hamas and then murdering them just goes to show that they were the ones resisting Israel. It's like calling anyone that resists American hegemony is a terrorist. Don't know what this laptop's trying to do here. Watching them and knowing that they were murdered makes me cry. I am having a very difficult time with this video too. That's, I'm not gonna lie, part of the reason why I paused it.
To this war. Mohammed Qreqa's mother was killed during Israel's siege and destruction of the Al-Shifa medical complex in March 2024. Mohammed spent days searching for his mother, but was only able to identify and retrieve her body after the Israeli army withdrew from the hospital they had destroyed.
ولقيت أمي نايمة، عرفتها أنا من نومتها بس، عرفتها من نومتها، عرفتها من أظافرها، عرفتها من الأواعي، عرفتها من شعرها كمان. أنا وحيدة، أنا وحيد أمي طول الفترة هذه اللي عايشينها أنا بس عايش معها، لقيت أمي نزبتني وأنا ضليت لحالي.
Both Anas al-Sharif and Mohammed Qreqa were fathers of young children from whom they had been separated for most of the past 2 years of the war. Anas now leaves behind his young daughter Sham and his son Salah.
بابا ترامب بقول بده يطلعنا من غزة، أنت بدك تطلع من غزة؟
لا طبعا في غزة.
And Muhammad leaves behind his son Zayn and young daughter. Israel has been threatening and inciting against these journalists for over a year, accusing young journalists like Anas al-Sharif of having ties to Hamas without producing any evidence to back their claims. Israel had accused 23-year-old reporter Hussam Shabat of also being linked to Hamas before they killed him in a direct airstrike in March 2025. Israel has killed at least 269 journalists since October 2023. In July, Anas al-Sharif told the Committee to Protect Journalists that he lived with the feeling that he could be bombed or martyred at any moment. The Al Jazeera network condemned in the strongest terms the targeted assassination of its correspondents Anas al-Sharif and Mohammed Qreqa. In a statement, the Israeli army openly admitted to targeting the journalists and said they were hit by an assault directed towards the tent they were stationed in opposite the Al-Shifa medical complex in Gaza. Al Jazeera reported that the order to assassinate Anas al-Sharif, one of Gaza's most prominent journalists, and his colleagues is a desperate attempt to silence the voices exposing the impending seizure and occupation of Gaza.
How the fuck can Israel blithely and confidently say, yes, we did target that tent, we knew who was in that tent, and we knew why we were targeting that tent and who was in that tent, and we did it because we wanted to, and the entire world just say, yeah, you're right, Israel, go right ahead, as the world has done for the other 269 people, journalists, that Israel has murdered. Again, any other country in the world that had done this or could have done this would have been drugged through the streets by their own people or by the international community. If France had done this, if Spain had done this, if England or Germany had done this, the populations of those countries would have drugged their leaders out into the streets. But because it's Israel, it's okay. Israel is admitting to their crimes, admitting to their atrocities, bragging about it in the process. And not a single fucking finger is being lifted. Like, why do we have the United Nations then at all? That is a question I really want answered. What is the point of having the United Nations if the United Nations is not going to take action against an act of genocide? Oh, because the United States of America, during their fascist overtaking, said no? Then what purpose does it serve if one country can single-handedly prevent any interference or intervention in the prevention of, or the stopping of, or the accountability against the nation committing the genocide? The United Nations may as well not exist. They may as well shutter the doors in Geneva and in New York City, because they serve zero purpose if any country can get in the way of preventing any other country from being held accountable for committing genocide. This should have been over and done with in October of 2023. This should have been done after Israel immediately started steamrolling Palestine. That was when the United Nations should have acted. And the fact that the United States of America was complicit by not interfering in the slightest and going out of its way to support Israel, it should condemn the Biden administration, to include Kamala Harris, to death at The Hague. Period. Dot. End of story. And the fact that this administration is complicit in preventing the United Nations from acting means everyone in this administration needs to be executed at The Hague. Period. Dot. End of story. And it goes for every other country's leadership. Germany, Italy, Spain, France, Canada, Mexico. Well, maybe not Mexico. I think Mexico has been pretty vocal against it. But you know what I'm saying? A vast majority of the countries have not done or said or even lifted a finger against Israel. And every single one of those fuckers are complicit. And that needs to be said loudly and repeatedly until public opinion shifts to be like, wait, you're right. That actually makes sense. It's time for you to go to The Hague. Because this is insane. We have a minute left, so let us pay homage for one more minute and try to keep ourselves together.
Israeli forces and government responsible for deliberately targeting and assassinating its journalists. Anas al-Sharif's will was posted shortly after he was killed, and part of it reads, "If these words reach you, know that Israel has succeeded in killing me and silencing my voice. First, peace be upon you and Allah's mercy and blessings. Allah knows I gave every effort and all my strength to be a support and a voice for my people ever since I opened my eyes to life in the alleys and streets of the Jabalia refugee camp. I have lived through pain in all its details, tasted suffering and loss many times, yet I never once hesitated to convey the truth as it is, without distortion or falsification. Allah may bear witness against those who stayed silent, those who accepted our killing, those who choked our breath, and whose hearts were unmoved by the scattered remains of our children and women, doing nothing to stop the massacres that our people have faced for more than a year and a half." Though Anas's career was cut short, those he left behind vowed to continue his message.
I mean, what do you say to that? That is probably one of the most powerful statements I have ever heard. And I mean, the TLDR version is, I have done my part on this earth. May God have mercy on the souls of those who remain unmoved at my sacrifice and the death of those around me. Allow me to usher those people into Allah's embrace so that they can be judged accordingly. Oh, well, I don't believe in Allah and that Muslim crap. Oh, luckily, you will still be judged by whatever fucking God you do worship and believe in. And they can be the ones to have mercy upon your soul, because I and my administration will have none. And I cannot say any more or any less than that. As far as I'm concerned, I am just an usherer, a bus driver, the boatman. I am simply the boatman. I don't judge you. I condemn the shit out of you, but I cannot judge you. That is not for me to do. But I can absolutely accelerate the process upon which you can be judged. And that I will do. There is no fiber of my being that will not work tirelessly and relentlessly to ensure that everyone responsible, directly or indirectly, for these atrocities, and everyone who has supported it tacitly or subtly, will get their comeuppance. That I can guarantee. That I can promise. Would that I could judge your souls. Would that I could make those kinds of actions, those kinds of feats possible. Would that I had the ability to render upon thee judgment. Because I fucking would. And I would not hesitate to reap those judgments upon everyone involved. So, I know there's 24 videos about this. I'm assuming most of these, again, the last words, that's probably going to be what we just heard. I personally don't think I can emotionally take rehashing it over and over again, but I think what we should do, though, is highlight the responses of countries and protesters. Let's give them a little bit of a highlight so that we can
garage floor bother you? Tired of your old crack?
Have those discussions and see with our own eyes that
governmental organizations,
although this is happening and largely going unchecked, there is response, and it is response in the right direction.
There's bringing a case before the UN's top court against.
Hard to provide evidence of something that they made up. The fact that this conflict has been live streamed at 4K really proves that history is written by the winners. Because the biggest bully in the world, the U.S. backs Israel. They get away with anything, and every president who has provided Israel with financial assistance and weapons has blood all over their hands. You have no idea how much history I'm still relearning because we were taught so many lies. No, that is true, and that was in response to Tylo, and that is absolutely true. Every single day, I have to unlearn Western imperialism and Western exceptionalism, and it's pretty depressing how fucking deep it goes. Most of the leaders of the Western powers are complacent. Brother Anas, rest in peace and power. He was born in a refugee camp. If that goes to explain at all what the situation in Palestine was even before October 7th. Right. And then commenting on my declaration of commitment to accountability with regards to Israel's genocide and the Palestinian genocide. We're going to have to probably clip that at some point.
Senior Israeli military commanders for allegedly authorizing the murder of those 4 Al Jazeera journalists. The Hind Rajab Foundation and the Palestinian Center for Human Rights have named the Israeli Chief of General Staff and 7 others. They also accused Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of presiding over a strategy to eliminate journalists. Of course, the ICC has already issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu and the former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for war crimes. Joining us now is Dayab Abu Janja, the chairman at Hind Rajab Foundation. It is a non-profit organization mainly dedicated to the quest for justice in response to the crimes against humanity, war crimes, and human rights violations against Palestinians. He joins us live now from Brussels. Thank you.
I really like that Al Jazeera has that banner that says Israel murdered journalists and free Palestine. Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, again, I have criticized Al Jazeera on several of their videos for not being nearly outspoken enough against Israel when they report on Israel from like a newsroom. But when they talk about Israel murdering journalists, I mean, they all the gloves are off, which is fine, which is absolutely appropriate. But it is just as appropriate to have the gloves off anytime you are reporting about Israel. That's the whole fucking point. So let's hear what this is about, and then
so much for joining
we'll
us.
Watch some of the protests.
Will this court filing, if you will, make any difference?
Of course, every filing can make a difference, but it is something for the long run. It is a cumulative effort. This filing and other filings.
So just for the sake of pointing it out, because not everybody may be familiar with this, but Hind Rajab was a child who was the face of Palestine during this whole genocide and was famously murdered by Israel because her video, her persona, her existence was adding sympathy to Western audiences for Palestinians and their plight, and it undermined Israel's ability to commit genocide. And so they murdered a 6-year-old fucking child to silence her and to destroy a burgeoning movement of sympathy for the Palestinian people, and then, worst of all, succeeded in thwarting the sympathy that was growing for Palestine. Instead of that act of pure malevolence, galvanizing Western societies to unilaterally and universally condemn Israel and their atrocities, it's been forgotten. And this man is the chair of the foundation that was created in her honor. And I can empathize with that, Anna.
That these crimes are being documented and are being put on the record of the ICC, but also of national prosecutors across the planet, that cases are being brought against individuals, not just against political leaders, but against rank and file, against officers, against soldiers in many cases, is very important. It is something for the long haul. It is something that requires a lot of patience, but it is something that is instrumental in seeking justice, and we are convinced that this justice eventually will be served.
Yeah, but you've done extensive work examining what happened 2 days ago. Give us a sense of what the chain of command was like and who you've identified as being the culprits.
I want to buy your
Seriously, Al Jazeera, listen, I get that you're trying to, because you got to keep your finances coming. I get that. I'm not criticizing you for fundraising and monetizing your content, but maybe, and hear me the fuck out, maybe you don't put ad breaks in the middle of your content that's discussing atrocities. Maybe you can put ad breaks in your discussions about tariffs or the economy or trade or infrastructure being built or anything that has not to do with genocide. Maybe don't put ad breaks in a video discussion. Just my humble suggestion, my humble feedback, if you will.
Yes, of course, in this kind of, let's say, open source intelligence forensic work.
I've heard that YouTube channels don't get to pick when ads are ran or even what ads they run. Well, I was under the impression that that was not the case. So, if that is not the case, then just don't monetize the fucking video. There's another thought. Just because your channel's monetized doesn't mean you have to monetize every video on it. Because I know when I upload videos, not that I am eligible for monetization anyway, but you can click it. It's an option. Do you want to make it monetizable or eligible for monetization? And you can literally select no. Yeah. We can offline and I can show you how that works. But yes, that is definitely an option.
You have to depart from the smallest level and go and build up to the highest echelon of in the chain of command. So what we try to do is not to jump immediately to the political responsibility, because it's quite obvious that Benjamin Netanyahu and his ministers are responsible for the systematic targeting of journalists in Gaza since the beginning of the genocide. However, what we try to establish is who shot the missile. And so we identified the drone type that was used, and then we could link that to one or two squadrons, but we are quite sure that it's one squadron called the Black Cobra, the Black Snake Squadron, which is operating Hermes-class drones. And then, of course, this is connected to the type of rocket that was used, which is a spike class type. You know, it's quite targeted because, as you know, the Israelis totally confessed that they were wanting, or that they wanted to kill and killed Anas al-Sharif. So if you build upon that, then you end up at the Palmachim air base, where these drones are being operated by several squadrons. Of course, then we filed against the squadron commander. We filed against the commander of the Palmachim air base, and then you build up to the responsibility, obviously, of the Israeli Air Force commander, but also the chief of staff. Including also some responsibility for the Unit 8200, which gathers intelligence, military intelligence, cyber intelligence, and actually was spying and using the data of the phones of not only Anas, but also other journalists to assassinate them. So it's a complex image, and
so I don't want to hear more of that. That's fucking sick. First of all, fundamentally, it doesn't matter where the attack came from or who ordered it. Fundamentally, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, it's a war crime, and it's happening, and we do have the ability to find out who, what, when, where, and how. And what's even more disturbing is that any country on earth could easily shut down Israel militarily. Easily. Iran already proved that they could. Syria is trying really hard not to engage in World War III, but that's the rub. There are plenty of countries that could turn Israel into a glass parking lot overnight. But then it would trigger the response of the United States of America. So we can argue that this genocide is occurring because other countries are afraid of incurring the wrath of America or the complicity of the NATO countries as well. At the same time, and I cannot emphasize this enough, what purpose does the United Nations serve then if it cannot interject in an honest to fucking God genocide? And if countries cannot interfere and are afraid to interfere, then we don't have international law. And if we don't have international law, then what do we have on this earth? We just have a mutually assured agreement of destruction that is keeping us from engaging in World War III at the moment. But at the cost of how much humanity? At the cost of how much life? How many more small countries are going to be erased and eradicated by aggressive nation states for fear of upsetting NATO, the United States, or causing Russian and Chinese alliances or Russian, Indian, and Chinese alliances against the West? How many more people must suffer and die? Syria? Iran? Lebanon? Egypt? Iraq? Afghanistan? Like, what's the line? The entire Middle East? Where does it stop? Again, this has been the canary in the coal mine since it happened in October 7th. And the more evidence comes out, the more evidence that Israel is responsible and culpable, and the more is revealed that Israel has been orchestrating this and playing Western governments and societies like a fiddle from day fucking one, should be all the evidence the people of these countries need to demand their countries to act, to be in the streets. And all we get are these. Don't get me wrong. It's good that there are any protests whatsoever. But if they are individual acts that come to a close after a day, after 2 days, after 3 days, then that's all that is you shaking your fist and going back to the way things are. We need sustained protests over the course of months if we want this to change. But Palestine doesn't have months. They don't have months anymore. They had months 2 years ago, but they don't have months now. We need, if we're going to do the protesting thing, then we need to occupy places of power. And we need to force the votes. We need to force them to act. Raising our fists and going back to work isn't going to make them do a fucking thing.
Cities around the world with demonstrators denouncing Israel's genocide in Gaza.
Yeah, and I noticed that as well, that most of those journalists were younger than my brother or my sister. None of them, I think the oldest one was like 93, I think, 94. None of them were in 1980, 1990, none of that. And some of them, like you said, were early 2000s, so they weren't even in the prime of their lives yet. Most of them were early 20s or early 30s. And they were killed fighting a war that they seemingly had no chance of winning in the first place, as warriors who had faced some of the most devastating odds in all of human conflict. Like the Spartans 300 had greater odds of surviving the Persians than these journalists did Israeli genocide in modern times. And these journalists were every bit as brave as Leonidas' 300. As, well, how many other wars were there? The Alamo, perhaps, except America was the bad guys, as it turns out they have been most of the time. I'm trying to think, what other great battles in history was there insurmountable odds against a superpower? I honestly, genuinely can't think of one. That's how fucked up this whole situation is.
Istanbul, thousands of protesters demanded more humanitarian aid be allowed into the Strip. Organizers called on the international community to take urgent action to end the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Sinem Kosciuszko was at the protest in Istanbul.
See, and this is what I'm talking about. Now that they're reporting about the protest, it's back to humanitarian crisis. It's back to demanding from the government. It's back to using terms that does not unilaterally condemn Israel for committing genocide. Now it's back to politicizing the words and catering the speech to the delicate sensibilities of the power and the elite. Call it what it is. It's not a humanitarian crisis. It's a fucking genocide with manufactured starvation. That pisses me off.
Thousands of Turkish citizens gathered in Istanbul's historical Beyazıt Square and started marching towards Hagia Sophia Mosque to show their support and solidarity with the Palestinian people and support the Palestinians who have been suffering in Gaza for the last 2 years because of the Israeli attacks. These people here are trying to show that they want to be a light of hope with their mobile phones lights on, with small lanterns in their hands. They just want to show the world that the Palestinians need to have their basic rights for food, for humanitarian aid. And they believe that because of these huge protest gatherings, the international community will not have any luxury to forget the people who are suffering in Gaza.
This atrocity is being committed right before the world's eyes. This brutality is taking place, yet the so-called civilized world remains silent. A world that worries about 3 whales trapped in the ocean says nothing as thousands of people are victimized and left to die of hunger.
I believe that if just a few countries united to open the Rafah border crossing and deliver aid by land and sea, and if 1 million people marched there, nothing could stop them anymore.
Palestinians in Gaza
well, that's not true because didn't we cover a video in which it was a convoy? Didn't that get unilaterally stopped or attacked or harassed just recently, and it left from Syria, or was it leaving from Libya? So I mean, no, 1 million people marching to Palestine are just 1 million people without cover or weapons or a means to defend themselves. They are target practice. And unless they're willing to die, ignoring the military, and will push forward as they are getting bombed, shot, and dragged away, and or are willing to fight back, that's not going to work. It's much like when those 11 kids decided to storm the ICE detention facility and forgot that this was real life and not Call of Duty, and after the shots started coming back at their heads, they surrendered without further incident. Like, if you're going to do a massive direct action, then you must be willing to take direct action. Otherwise, it's an empty gesture.
Basically food, water, electricity, medicine, and people who attend this large gathering today in Istanbul, they believe their presence here will at least put some pressure on the international community, maybe on the United Nations Security
if they
Council,
stick to it for more than a day.
Steps against Israel to stop its oppression, and for the Turkish government, who has been very vocal about what they call an expansionist and genocidal policy targeting Palestinians in Gaza, this is not sustainable. And standing by Israel has become a moral burden for many countries, as Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan says. That's why recognizing the state of Palestine as new countries do right now, is a very important step about the solution, possible solution in the future.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That is exactly the thing. Oh, it is becoming more politically expedient to stand against Israel, while doing anything to actually stop Israel is still not being done, because that isn't politically expedient. Yelling at Israel and shaking your little mouse fist at them, that is expedient now. But doing something to actively undermine Israel is not, because of whatever reason. We can say it's because of American aggression, but this administration, as I mentioned before, I do my monologues and I forgot I was in this tiny little square. The United States of America does obviously back Israel with this administration, the previous, and every other administration, right? But is America gonna actually go to war with a country that forces the issue about releasing aid into Israel? This administration? Probably not. I would be willing to bet that this administration wouldn't have the testicular fortitude or the ability to even orchestrate and execute the attack or the counterattack in the first place. So again, if Turkey, Syria, Iran, Libya, and Egypt, what's another country in that area? I wish I was a little bit more familiar. Jordan, I think. If they all band together and was like, listen, we're going to roll deep on your borders and you're going to fucking open the doors, at this point, public opinion is already swaying in the side of Palestine. Western governments aren't going to have the ability to brazenly order counterattacks. And that's also true here in America. So if ever there was an opportunity to use military force, to force Israel to allow the humanitarian aid to get through, now is that fucking time. And yesterday or 3 months ago or 5 months ago was even better. So, I'm going through water like a fucking something, not a camel because they don't need water. I think I'm going to fill up 2 cups from now on. That way we don't have to keep doing these intermission breaks. It could just be stress too. You know, the adrenaline drying everything out, who knows, right? But this is very stressful and, you know, lots of rage-inducing commentary, right? So, what we're going to do is we're going to play our favorite communist music. And then I will be right back and I will have water. So let's make sure it all loads. And then off we go to the wild red yonder. Ah, Jesus fucking Christ.
With USAA Safe Pilot, I can
wow, my ad blocker's no longer working. That's adorable.
I can save on scenic drive.
Wow. Alright, as promised, our communist music. I would be silly, but I am not in a silly mood, and I think I picked the wrong song. That sounded like the church thing, and I didn't want to do like a funeral dirge, but I did not, in fact, get the right playlist yet. I haven't listened to all these communist songs, so I don't know which ones are peppy and communist-y. Some of them are again, just like we heard, the orchestral JRPG final boss fight music, and others are just really hokey. And then there's the others that are like... So, that was not one of them. I do apologize. But I have my 2 cups of water. So, let's take a deep breath. Yeah, because honestly, I'd rather be hyped up right now, and I was told that it is not a violation of terms and services to show firearms on stream, so... But maybe for legal purposes, and in case I get swatted, those are all fake. Come get me, motherfucker. Anyway, I digress. So... Alright. I don't want to say, oh, let's move on to some other topic. We've covered enough Palestinian stuff, but I do want to cover as much as we can. Fuck it. We're gonna... These are all fairly short videos, so we'll go through them. Alright, that was the one that we just watched. Pakistan.
Raising the next generation.
Pakistani capital Islamabad, media groups have rallied in protest against...
Who said what? That it wasn't against the terms and conditions? A little birdie.
Killing of Al Jazeera journalists. Kamal Haider sent us this report from the protest site.
Members of the media as well as the local civil society members are here to condemn the brutal killing of the Al Jazeera team, and of course are here to show their solidarity with the Palestinian people. We've been speaking to these people to tell us about how they feel and why they're here.
I'd like to start with offering my condolences to the family of Anas al-Sharif and all the other 5 journalists who were target killed. You know, I could say shaheed, I could say martyred, I could use a lot, killed, assassinated. I want to say targeted and killed, because that is the correct way of putting it. So targeted and killed. But the real thing I want to say is that almost 250 journalists, including Al Jazeera,
So this is she just said 250, they just reported 269. Was there another couple dozen journalists that were fucking murdered between Sunday and today? Like, it's Wednesday, for fuck's sake. If another 20 people were murdered between Sunday and today, that's damn near a fucking average of 7 additional journalists killed on site. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, I guess you never know with Israel. And the come get me was, looking behind me, because if I'm going to get swatted, it's going to be through these windows. You see what I'm saying? So. And Grandma over here is fucking on fire. She's like, I'm not going to talk about being martyred or any of this other stuff, because they were targeted and killed, which is a deliberate action, which is a crime. Which gives credence to the fact that it was a crime. So go get you some, Grandma.
Have been killed since Israel invaded and occupied and bombed and genocided Gaza since October 2023.
We are here before the Islamabad Press Club to condemn the...
well, we can't hear. Suffice to say, it's always the middle-aged to older ladies that bring the fucking fire, because yesterday it was that lady from Nebraska who just She fucking brought that shit. And now we got Grana from Pakistan, who, again, is like, no, it wasn't martyrdom. It wasn't this, that, or the other. It was being targeted and killed, and it was Israel that fucking did the targeting and the killing. Like, get you some. All right, let's see what Malaysia has.
See what scholarships you may qualify for. Visit GCU.
Well, I'm stupid, so I probably wouldn't qualify for any scholarships.
Ever since the start of the war on Gaza, there have been regular protests in Malaysia, some larger, some smaller, but the recent announcement by Israel for the complete military control of Gaza...
So, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the hats that they're wearing have something to do with Malaysian culture or ritual. Because I have never seen that before in any of the other protests. But they're all wearing the kafiyas, which is obviously in solidarity.
...has added new impetus to the whole movement. This rally of solidarity has been organised by 20 NGO groups with cross-party political support. Protesters have been setting off from different points around Kuala Lumpur and converging here on Independence Square to hear speeches, to see performances, to hold prayers, all with a message of standing in solidarity with the people of Palestine.
It is not self-defense because they are bombing children. Israel is very cruel.
It's a new occupation that should be opposed by the global community. There should be more humanitarian action.
The Malaysian government has roundly...
I guess they couldn't find an abuela in Malaysia to rain fucking fire and fury upon the Israeli people. And that girl... Bless her heart, I guess. I mean, obviously everybody that's protesting wants these things to stop and end, but the reality is the crime is the crime is the crime is the crime. It's not a genocide because Israel is bombing children. It's a genocide because of them murdering innocent civilians with deliberate intent of erasing them, their entire bloodlines and their existence from the land. That's what makes it a genocide. The genocide is the act of erasure. That is the genocide, which is why Native Americans, indigenous peoples all over the world are victims of white settler colonialism who committed genocide against them when occupying those lands. Just to put that into some perspective. This guy has a very British silhouette. I just cannot not comment about that, even with the seriousness and tone of the stream.
Chile has the largest Palestinian community outside of the Middle East, many of them in regular contact with family and friends in Gaza.
So, okay, that's kind of confusing because Argentina was also where a lot of the Nazis fled after World War II. So how is Argentina both the safe haven of former Nazis and Palestinians fleeing Israel? I'm also very curious to know what the population of Palestinians in Argentina is. Is it several million? Is it tens of thousands? Is it hundreds of thousands? I'm very curious.
They're marching in ever greater numbers with Chileans, also horrified by the images they see daily of starving children and devastated communities.
Is it winter in Argentina? Like, call me an ignorant American, but I didn't think South American countries were in the season of winter right now. But evidently, I mean, I'm aware it's the Southern Hemisphere, but I thought summer was summer for everybody. See, I am stupid. Told you, I wouldn't get a fucking, whatchamacallit, I can't even think of the word. For college, what the hell is that called now? Kick? That's one of the worst apps of all time. That was definitely degree scholarship. Yes. Can't even get a fucking scholarship if I don't even understand. I guess that, maybe I'm just too tired and flustered by the situation. I guess that would make, because the tilt is like this, so the sun's going here more than it is here. And the equator, well, it's kind of like this, right? So the equator's always getting it. But then you got, when it rotates away or further. Yeah, okay. I'm having trouble with geography and apparently astronomy. Astrophysics right now. Maybe it's just throwing me for a loop because they're wearing jackets and it's just, I'm wearing a sweater because it's cold in the Oval Office, but it's also 90 degrees in America right now, all over the place, so. All right. So anyway, my ignorance of the seasons notwithstanding, I'm a meteorologist, not a meteorologist, okay? I can't be everything everywhere all at once, all right?
This is the famine. I hope all the governments in the world will raise their voice and put an end to this genocide.
They protested in Argentina too. The country's largest march was through the streets of Buenos Aires to the presidential palace. Arabs and Argentinians together.
For a long time, we've been calling for a break in relations with Israel because it's a state committing genocide that's massacring the Palestinian people.
I'm Argentinian and I'm here because I believe the Palestinian people are being crushed. They were born on that land and should not be killed there.
Argentina recognized the state of Palestine in 2010. However, much of the anger here was directed at Argentina's current president, Javier Milei, who has made 2 state visits to Israel, the latest in June.
Isn't this motherfucker one of the biggest fascists in South America right now? We covered this guy, didn't we? This guy is literally like a Hitler, Mussolini, like, love child. This dude is bad fucking news. The Republicans here in my state have shown more humanity towards the Palestinians than the Democrats. Well, that's kind of the rub, isn't it? That the Democrats are the party of the people, the party of tolerance, the party of kumbaya, and they're one of the most bloodthirsty, vile, and violent individuals in positions of power in the country. And I'm not saying all Democrats are this way, just as all Republicans aren't Trump. But the leadership kind of speaks for itself. Yeah, he doesn't believe in climate change and is a horrible person on top of that. At least I believe in climate change, even if I don't understand the science behind it. That's not true. I do understand the science behind it. Apparently the tilty earth gets me. My bad, guys. It's that whole geography thing, all right?
When he addressed Israel's parliament.
I am proud to tell you that in 2026 we will move our embassy to West Jerusalem, as we have promised.
And did you... Hold on, because that was way too fast.
Jerusalem, as we have promised.
All these motherfuckers that are applauding and standing up with their yarmulkes and everything else, not just because they're wearing yarmulkes, but I'm saying everybody in there, they also need to be sent to The Hague. There are probably, globally, several million people who are aiding and abetting the Israeli genocide against Palestinians in the world governments, industry, journalism, just generally speaking, right? There's got to be several million at this point, and they all need to have a very tight-fitting necktie. Kind of like this one. But with a slightly different knot. So it has this knot in the back, right? It just needs to be a little bit more secure. And it needs to be gifted to them by the people of their country. Their respective country. But suffice to say that Chile and Argentina, the people, are very much so on the side of Palestinians, and that this movement is growing, which is what we need. Milei consults his dead dog for policy decisions, and he cloned the dog. He has 3 dogs cloned from the dead dog that he also consults for policy. Well, I mean, Trump consults the voices in his head as well, so, I mean, and doesn't he listen to conspiracy theorists, like straight up QAnon people? Like people who are literally the leadership of QAnon, aren't they on his staff now? Like, that's the shitty thing about this administration, the Trump administration, is that it is so truly batshit that we can't even discuss the less batshit stuff, right? Like, who's on his actual cabinet and who's actually advising him. He has literally the singular most insane conspiracy theorists on his staff, advising him on different things. Laura Loomer, I think, was in fact one of those people that was like on the conspiracy theory train, and she is actively pushing for these various things. And we have the equivalent of that in Chile, Argentina, apparently. Brazil almost dealt with that. Canada narrowly avoided it, but they're like, these people still exist. Those parties still exist. Those movements still exist. Like, this is some of the scariest shit I have ever came across in my life, and I've only been around here for 35 years. This is insane. Laura Loomer is one of the QAnon folks. Yeah, so, I mean, that's how crazy all this shit. I'm getting a headache. That can't be good. You know what? I'm gonna take something for this, because I have had ocular migraines before, and it actually gave me the symptoms of a stroke. So let's not play with those games. I'll be right. I guess we'll do a BRB. All right. I wanted to do a little bit of silliness. Oh, I guess this twisted the wrong way. So we'll keep this on for the rest here. Actually, hold on. I didn't realize that the chat widget didn't transfer. So I will put this over here for now. So sorry. Just because I'm leaving to go do something doesn't mean y'all can't chat with each other. Mea culpa. Like I said, I had to redo all this from scratch because Compita, I worked her a bit too hard. All right. All right. Not a stroke for me. Well, okay, so it's not a stroke. It's an ocular migraine. And what an ocular migraine does, and it seems like Terratron has had one of those and knows what that entails. Evidently, you do get every single symptom of a stroke, or up to every single symptom of a stroke, except for the part of the stroke that actually matters, which is the heart, right? It's the heart not working properly. That's what the stroke is. But the numbness on the left side of your body, like literally the whole left side of your body, the mouth, the tongue, eyes, arms, fingers, leg, everything goes numb. To the point where it would have definitely impacted my speech and the ability for me to see. So, now that I know what it is, and I have, unfortunately, medical history of it, I don't want to necessarily go through that because that's not fun. It is very unfun. Let's see. We mentioned Laurel Loomer, and pop culture finally shows up. Yeah, welcome to the stream, Pop. He scared the shit out of me when that happened. Oh, yeah. Because I thought it was a funny little joke. It's like, oh, I thought I was having a stroke. I'm only 35. And Anna was like, are you out of your fucking mind? Why would you tell me that? And I was like, well, I thought it was funny. It's no, it's not funny. Go eat your vegetables. Yeah, we were talking and then I couldn't see your face. I've only had 3. Yeah, I've only had 1 and that was plenty. Apparently once you hit your mid-30s, you start getting heartburn for the first time in your life. You get ocular migraines for the first time in your life. Your knee starts hurting. You have to start going to the gym. Not to look good or sexy naked anymore, but no, so that you don't hurt from sitting. Even though you've been sitting doing this. Actually, where is my controller? It's over there. So, actually, I have a controller, right? So I've been doing this since I was 11. But now that I'm in my 30s, now all of a sudden it's a fucking problem, right? So, yeah. Anyway. And unironically, none of this has actually backfired on me yet. Late bloomer? Well, yeah, I get... What, are you saying that being a gamer... Listen, I'm a 90s... Well, I guess I'm not quite a 90s baby, but mostly a 90s baby. I mean, I played outside. I was a part of the generation that played outside. That's not a late bloomer. My family was also poor. They couldn't afford shit like that. I think I actually had to pay for my own PlayStation. And I had to save up for... Oh, that's right. I had a paper route. And I saved up money from that paper route so that I could afford the PlayStation and buy games for it. Yeah, well, you were born in ancient Mesopotamia, Anna, so I don't even want to hear your sass right now. Okay? Okay. You know, though, okay, so I'm getting a little distracted again because here's the thing. This particular Russian song, which I don't think you can play it on loop. I don't think you can just play YouTube videos on loop. I don't think that... I'm not seeing anything that would allow me... It only allows me to do replay and play. But... So, like, that's, like, you can still hear that in the background, right? Like, you can still hear that music playing. And it just kind of feels like when I'm talking about things like, I don't know, holding Israel accountable, fighting for human rights, civil rights, workers' benefits, wage reform, and economic reform, I almost have this song on loop in my brain. So, does it have that effect? Or do I need to tweak how loud that is in the background with my speaking? Because it seriously gives that je ne sais quoi. Because I'm talking about things like, we need to go on a global general strike. We need to hold them, their capitalists, accountable for all of their shenanigans. We need to hold Israel accountable for their genocide against the Palestinians. And we need to hold that goddamn Donald Trump accountable for tariffing the world when it don't do a damn goddamn no thing whatsoever for the people. Jen Messi sure feels that way sometimes. Yeah, no, it do be like that. But I was asking questions about the music, but, you know, ignore me, I guess. I'm just the guy that you're watching on stream. Big deal, right? So I do need to work on this whole beret thing. You said yes. Okay. You said that you could hear the music. That was the question that I asked. But does it give an impact? That's what I was thinking. I was looking for feedback. Does it add aura? Is this aura farming right now? That's what I wanted to know, damn it. Thank you. You know what? Even though Anna's like the chief moderator and the person who orchestrates, you know, the stream, I will take her support in the process. So, a couple things I was thinking about too is I got to fix this beret thing because this kind of looks like I just folded up a hat, and that is what I did. And I don't even know if this is actually intended to be a beret or not. Yeah, but I needed somebody else's opinion other than yours, okay? That's what I was getting at. Not that yours doesn't matter, Anna. I just needed additional opinion. Because this isn't just you watching me. It's Terratron and Pulp. Although I think Terra got distracted again, but that's okay. That's fine. You complain when my music is too white. Well, and to be fair, Terra isn't communist, but it's the aura. It's not the fact that it's communist music, per se. It's the male orchestra in like that old-timey stylization. It kind of gives that populist feel. But, to be fair, it doesn't have to be everybody's cup of tea. I'm just trying to play around with the theme of the stream. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to make it more engaging. That's all. I guess that was the main thing. If we have this playing in the background, especially when I'm talking, does it make it more engaging? Obviously, it's distracting as shit if we're trying to watch videos, and then we have the March of the Defenders of Moscow playing in the back. So, we'll play with that. We're going to have to figure out a way to play that on loop, though. Personally, don't think it suits the vibe. Fair enough. Well, so we're 1 for and 1 against, so we're back to net neutral. All right, let's carry on with the videos.
Ready-to-eat meal
That's enough
delivery
shenanigans.
services are not created equal. At Factor, it's personal. Everything is done from scratch.
Fun fact, I've had Factor's food. It's not that good. It's really not that good, and it's ludicrously expensive. So, although then again, it was like $13 a box back then, and that's probably what I spend on meal prep now anyway, because of how ridiculous groceries have gotten. So, I don't know, maybe I'm just an asshole. But I didn't find Factor's food that great because everything had broccoli in it, and I fucking despise broccoli and cauliflower, and that was their number one vegetable in each of their meals, whether it was protein or just regular pastas. They always had to throw in cauliflower and broccoli. And then it wasn't even the same meals each week. It changed each week. So some weeks you could actually pick something that didn't have that shit in it, and then the next week you didn't have a choice. You're going to eat it or not. But I'm not going to spend $13 on food that I don't want to eat. You know, even if it's just a little bit of food that I don't want to eat. So it got better. I had it for a while, but it is really expensive. You have to pick your meals now. Well, yeah. But like I said, if the difference between Factor and grocery shopping is the same amount of money, but I can go grocery shopping for what I want to eat, then kind of makes that question. It's either that as horrible electronic music, plus I don't think the electronic music would have the same vibe. Okay, so let's go back to this screen. Let's turn up the electronic music a little bit so we can hear it. Talking about Israel right now just doesn't make any sense. This vibe doesn't suit that discussion. Neither does talking about clean energy or economics. It doesn't have a good vibe at all, I think. Oh wait, what the fuck happened to my library? I had like 15... fucking course not. Well, we're about to get copyright struck because I'm gonna try and play something from the Final Fantasy playlist, apparently. But I do feel like maybe not this song. Oh, and there's ads on Spotify too. Can we please avoid the ads? Jesus Christ! I came in on him playing Catholic funeral music. Yeah, you know, that's kind of true. Wow, 15-second and 30-second unskippable ads. I'm trying to make a point here, and everything that I'm doing right now is giving me fucking ads. I'm not paying for YouTube ad-free, Spotify ad-free, ad-free. Like, this is fucking stupid. If I haven't put this... Anna, add to the list that we will eliminate ads on all fucking media platforms. All of them. No ads anywhere under any circumstances for any reason. Bro, this is the third ad in a row. And they have been 30-second ads for all of them. What in the actual fuck? Hold on, I cannot read that font that short or that small from this distance. Like, I can read it, but it's like so fucking tiny from here. Another fucking ad! What the hell? Stop! What the fuck? 4 ads in a row? Holy fucking shit! God damn. I am so angry right now. Now this music is obviously exciting. This is copyright. Like this belongs to A Realm Reborn Final Fantasy XIV original soundtrack by Square Enix Music. I don't own any of this, like, copyright, blah 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 blah. Like I get that, but for all intents and purposes, even music like this would have a much better vibe than the electronic music. But even this, I don't know if this gives the vibe of, like, emphasizing talking about human rights and economic changes and infrastructure reform or condemning Israel. This, and because I play Final Fantasy XIV, this music makes me want to go fight for the realm. Like, this makes me want to go raid. Like, this makes me want to, boot up the game and just stop talking about politics and start raiding or something. I don't know that this music is necessarily appropriate for politics. Does that make sense? But it is obviously better music. I mean, obviously, if we could play copyright music as background music, like it would be infinitely better, right? No argument there, but we got to do what we can do here. So anyway, mocking my Russian funeral music, thanks. Sam, why is it when you walk into a video game store, a video game console that's been sitting there for a while goes from like 200 to down to 150? Is that because nobody bought that box? The store employees just say now's the time it can drop in price? It's a good question. That is a good question. I think it has to do with popularity. For instance, a lot of like first-gen consoles are now considered retro, and now they're becoming more expensive as physical media is becoming scarcer and scarcer, and millennials are more interested in getting their, childhood back. And so they're getting these nostalgic systems with the nostalgic games rather than downloading everything on Steam or EA or whatever other GOG, for instance, right? So I think it has more to do with, like, is the Xbox OG more popular than the PS2? Which, I have an OG PS2 and an OG PS3. I also have a PS4 and a PS5. So I'm just saying I am the OG gamer here. So Terratron was talking all that mess earlier. I am committed to the PlayStation culture and community. President Ronan will make it a crime to do so many ads at once. The President fucking Ronan is going to make it a crime to do ads at all. Fuck that shit. If we need to make money from these things, we can figure out some other fucking way than ads. And certainly, and okay, well, ads is the only way you can do things on platforms because of the way the things are and how they work, you fucking boomer. Okay, let's have that discussion then. One ad every hour max. Period. Dot. And it should be skippable on top of that. And you should be able to use ad blockers that are free or paid in order to do that. Why? Because that is the freedom of consumerism that should exist. Just because you want to make money and just because you want to shove it down our throats doesn't mean we shouldn't have the ability to deny you. Fuck you, YouTube. Fuck you, Spotify. And yes, fuck you, Twitch, for forcing affiliates and what's the other one? I don't remember because I'm nowhere close to that. But fuck you for forcing us to run ads during our streams and forcing people to commit to a subscription fee just to avoid those ads. That's insane. Fuck you. Fuck your money grubbing. And stop raising the goddamn prices. Also, same thing with Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus. Fuck you. We're already paying monthly for these services. And you have the audacity, the temerity to charge us for higher levels of that service, that platform, so we don't watch ads in the first place, when our money, our resource built you from the ground up to begin with. How fucking dare you? Actually, you know what? That was pretty sick, because that song ended right when I was getting into the middle of my acapella right there at the end of my rant. And it was just dead silence after the climax of that song. And I was able to... I'm not going to lie. Final Fantasy playlist might be pretty bussin'. This song's really good, but it is very slow. Alright, now we got some exciting adventuring music again. So anyway. I digress. Ooh, that is a popular policy. Hold on, what did I miss out here? Oh yeah, that is a popular policy. Add that to the list, fuck it. Technology tends to get cheaper except when it becomes vintage. Sure, which is fine, but that's the resale market, which shouldn't be regulated other than by the people doing the reselling anyway, unless it's egregious, right? Like scalping tickets. You bought the ticket and now you're trying to resell it. That's different than trying to resell something that is vintage, that gained in value, right? Like, well, for instance, pipes, apparently. Did you know pipes that are actually seasoned are worth more than just the pipe itself, or like buying a new pipe that's kind of pretty looking? The fact that they're seasoned adds significant value to them. Now, of course, I would never sell these pipes. These are my grandfather's pipes. I'm keeping them because of memorabilia and nostalgia and all that fun stuff. But that is a fact that you could buy a pipe today, season the shit out of it, which means it's burned in with the tobacco smoke, and sell it for $50 outright. Any pipe, because that is a tough thing to do, as it turns out. Which made me wonder why box whatever one on the barcode that is $200 for weeks, that same box just drops in price the next day you come to the store. Yeah, I think again that has more to do with like the popularity generally of that system. Plus, if we want to talk about economics, if we're going to talk about true economics, pure economics, supply and demand is the ultimate deciding factor of cost, right? It's monopolies that can completely disregard supply and demand, as we are seeing. The supply and demand for food has not changed, other than the fact that there is more supply, and there is continuously more supply year over year because our agricultural yields continue to improve year over year. But the demand remains the same. Population grows significantly slower than the ability to produce food. So the fact that food is becoming more expensive anyway is a complete disregard of the metrics of supply and demand. Does that make sense? Xbox equals superiority? Yeah, that's why Xbox only has Halo and PlayStation has Final Fantasy. It did have Mortal Kombat exclusively, and then it sold out. It did have Assassin's Creed exclusively, but again, then it sold out. It had Soul Calibur exclusively, but then it sold out. What else? Guitar Hero was the best. The Guitar Hero from PlayStation is the most ideal original Guitar Hero controller. The PlayStation 5 has unilaterally the best graphics capability and processor of any of the new gen consoles. What else? It has the most award-winning games of the new consoles. And what else? Didn't need to get bought by a damn near $1 trillion company to remain relevant. So they forgot why Blockbuster and Hollywood Video failed. Exactly. I used to work at GameStop, and honestly, when prices dropped for anything specifically, it was the company trying to make a quick sale, which is again supply and demand. A basic version of it. I bought a PS3 for my ex-husband because I was the best wife ever. Yeah, Anna, you wasted all of that good wife material on a shitbag. Pop culture praising the Anna. They failed probably because that was when streaming started. True, and Blockbuster didn't evolve or adapt to the times, because Blockbuster, by rights, could have easily segued into the streaming services. They easily could have done that, but they chose not to. Just like when Yahoo had the opportunity to buy Google for $15 million and didn't. And now Google is one of the most valuable companies in the world. Maybe if he gets a VP that is an Xbox person. That's right. I shall unite the people by having a VP who is an Xbox person. Geez. Terratron, we're going to need you to get spun up on global and national politics very quickly. You can maintain your conservative-leaning values, that's fine. But we need you to brush up on them and be more broadly engaging. And then you could be the VP that represents Xbox. And Anna will continue to be the chief of staff that does all the behind-the-scenes stuff. And then I just need to find a first lady, and we're good to go. Like, let's go. Xbox 360 allows you to film yourself in movie scenes, so it has some formidable challenge. No, I think Xbox 360 did beat the PS3. I think the Xbox 360 was the superior console in that generation. I think that did win, also because of the Halo series. Halo 3 was mind-blowing. The first time I saw a game like that was the Xbox 360. It was the Halo 3. It was 1080p. It was the most... It pushed the 360 to its absolute fucking limit, and it was beautiful through and through and through. So I think the 360 truly was the superior console during that generation. So, yes. Alright. Now that I've waxed nostalgic... Right? Best times with multiplayer. I probably put in more hours in Halo 3 than any other game in my childhood. And of course I played all the Final Fantasies. Of course I played Dark Souls. Of course I played all those games, right? But I think the game that I put the most hours in with friends and all this, that, and the other was absolutely Halo 3. Alright. So, let's go ahead and pause Final Fantasy XIV music and...
We're here in the heart of New York City, and several hundred protesters from the Palestinian Youth Movement are holding a protest right outside the headquarters of the New York Times. And they're doing it in support of our Al Jazeera colleagues that were murdered in Gaza City. They're passing out stickers like this with photos of Anas al-Sharif, and the words say, "They can't kill the story, the coverage continues." They have paintings of our Al Jazeera colleagues that have been murdered in Gaza right out in front of the main entrance to the New York.
I think this is the first correspondent that has actually been using the words that they have been murdered. From all the protests that have been happening outside of directly reporting the murders themselves, I think this guy is the only journalist that has called it out like that. Yes, they interviewed people who said that, yes, but the journalists themselves did not, I don't believe. So kudos to this guy.
Times they're chanting an end to the genocide, and they chose this location for a reason.
We're here today because this week Anas al-Sharif, the journalist, along with several of his colleagues, were murdered in an Israeli airstrike. And we're here in front of the New York Times because of the role that legacy media institutions like the Times have played in running cover for Israel's genocide. We know these media institutions have the ear of the powerful. We know that they have a role to play in building the political will to end the genocide, to end the starvation campaign, and thus far they've refused to do so. So we are here to say that they have the blood of Anas and all of the other over 200 Palestinian journalists who have been murdered by Israel in the course of this genocide on their hands, and that it's unacceptable.
Absolutely fucking correct.
Other side of New York City, more protests outside the United States mission to the United Nations. This is part of an ongoing action that has been occurring every day for the past week. They too are
now see that's what we need, more of that ongoing action. It's been going on for the past week. We need it to go on for 90 days, a minimum of 90 days. That is how much time it takes for a sustained movement to force, not encourage, not push, not whatever, but to force a given government to take action. 90 days. And we're at week 1.
For an end to the genocide, and what they say is the U.S. complicity in allowing mass starvation in Gaza. The plan is to hold similar protests every afternoon right outside the United Nations headquarters.
Abso-fucking-lutely. Holy crap, a Paris airport worker was suspended for shouting "Free Palestine" to an Israeli airline crew. I mean, quite frankly, that's the kind of actions we do need to see more of. Is people harassing Israelis and harassing Israeli companies and boycotting Israeli companies and generally making it extremely uncomfortable to be pro-Israeli. That's exactly what we need. So kudos to that worker. And then, of course, Yas Queen from Ana La Diosa about what we've been watching. A foreign affairs Tea Party. I mean, honestly, that is the kind of movement we need. The Tea Party infiltrated the Republican Party by primarying everyone in not just the Republican Party. I believe they primaried everyone until they started winning elections. And then they started gaining their seats, and then they were able to influence actual party leadership and actual party policy. That is the kind of shit that we need to be doing, and that I am actively advocating for. OTM Shanks 99. Why do I get the feeling Trump is going to give Alaska to Putin on Friday? I mean, honestly, at the rate things are going, I wouldn't put it past Trump to do dumb shit like that. I don't know about specifically Alaska, but giving Putin what he wants, or in some way, form, or fashion capitulating and failing to follow through on any of his promises or demands, 100% agree that is well on its way.
Was organized in part by healthcare workers.
Why am I out here? Because anyone who takes an oath or receives an education as a guardian of life, of health, needs to stand against genocide, needs to make that position known, and that includes not just protests in the street, all of the medical organizations in the United States.
On Saturday, we're expecting another...
Hold on a second here. We can allow that. Okay, so do we have to remove a star from the flag? No. Because at this point, the American flag, the way that it is kind of symbolic indicatively of the country itself regardless, right? And really and truly, if we were going to redesign the flag, the only other redesign that would even make sense would be going back to the colonial flag, which would be the origin of America, right? And beyond that, you would just have to completely reinvent the Stars and Stripes to be something else altogether, right? So, no, I don't think you would just remove a star. I think if there's going to be any sort of redesign, it would be whatever it is under the administration and the culture and community that exists at the time of the redesign. I have a video on the playlist in which Trump is saying that he's going to help the Ukraine. He said if the U.S. was returned to the mother country, the clown loyalists would love it. What? What? Pop culture, I need you to rewrite what you wrote there because that didn't make sense, I don't think. This is Elon Musk's legacy forever. When Doge ended USAID, they ended food to 200 million starving people, 7 million of them young children. When they ended PEPFAR, they ended AIDS medication for 11 million people. He is one of the biggest mass murderers in history. On top of the fact that his own cars and his own cuts, his support and advocacy to undermine Social Security and Medicaid, the fact that he hacked them. I mean, the man is drenched in blood, but directly and indirectly, not least of which is USAID. The fact that he gutted the FCC and is forcing the federal government to rely on Starlink, and then those systems started to fail, causing crashes and delays and this, that, and the other. 100% Elon Musk is responsible for definitely millions of lives that may or may not be lost in the very near future. We do add a star every time we acquire a state, so it would make sense to remove one if we lose a state. I'm not disagreeing that that's what we do, but I don't think we actually redesigned the flag until after we got Alaska. I don't think it was just like, oh, here's another state, 1803, got to add one. Oh, now California's a state, got to add a couple more. Like I don't think that's how that went. I think the Stars and Stripes just kind of stuck at a certain way until we had enough, and then that got redone until we had the 50 states, and then it was like this national thing, and the kid who got it was from Ohio and got a B+, who got the design that is now being used by the world. I said that in response to the Alaska stuff. If Red Overlord returned the U.S. to Great Britain, the loyalists would love it. Oh, I see. Yeah, I'm fairly certain. How many times has the U.S. flag been redesigned? Oh, maybe I am wrong. 27 times. 26 times. District of Puerto Rico.gov. But it's not showing what they actually looked like. So, apparently, according to... Well, I'll just share it so y'all can see. Follow along, class! In 1795, the number of Stars and Stripes was increased from 13 to 15 to reflect Vermont and Kentucky. And then that was the flag that inspired the Star Spangled Banner. In 1818, the flag was changed to have 20 stars, with a new star to be added when each new state was admitted, but the number of stripes would remain at 13 to honor the original colonies. The act specified that new flag designs should become official on the 1st July 4th, following admission of one or more states. Neither the order of the stars nor the proportions of the flag was prescribed until President Taft in 1912. And then, consequently, flags dating before this period sometimes show unusual arrangements of the stars and odd proportions, these features being left to the discretion of the flag maker. In general, however, straight rows of stars in proportions similar to those later adopted officially were used. The United States Army Institute of Heraldry has plans for flags with up to 56 stars, using similar staggered star arrangements should additional states accede. So that's interesting. So I guess I was wrong on that. But yeah, there's no like imagery, which that's kind of unfortunate. I would have been very interested to see some of those. Right, Puerto Rico doesn't have a star, but it was from the government website of Puerto Rico. 26 times for 50 states. That must have been a waiting game to see what else would be added before putting stars on. Right, because after like the Louisiana Purchase and after the annexation of Mexico, right, the states of Mexico that would end up making California and all the western states, I think those were also moments of that 26th time, right? Like it wasn't, okay, we're going to do California and then redesign and then. I think it was like we got batches of states a few times in that 26 as well. Well, we already had stars for the 13 colonies, so that was one of 26, right. I thought that was only a rare occurrence. I think it is a rare occurrence, to be honest. And we've never had to deal with losing a state, so who knows what the protocol there is. They have plans for when Trump adds Canada and Greenland. Yeah, I do too. It's called not doing that. Here's the thing, right? Okay, so when I'm president and all of my economic policies and domestic policies make America the greatest it's ever been because we're not going to be racist, white supremacist, ethno-states, and we're going to get rid of capitalism wholesale, right? Oh, now would be the perfect time to continue on with the communist music. Or the Final Fantasy music. Man, I really hope that doesn't get copyright. Shit, I probably shouldn't play it. We're going to get copyright strikes. Because if it edits out the music, I'm fairly certain it also edits out my voice. And that would be a very awkward scene. So we'll just try and play this communist song in the background. Anyway, once those policies take effect and once this country starts to actually, prosper and all of the corrupt pieces of garbage have been summarily dealt with, there is the possibility that countries would volunteer to join the United States of America to participate in these policies, because the only way these policies could be implemented in other countries is if they followed in the same footsteps as, well, what we did. And to decisively deal with corruption in a given country, you would need a revolutionary act. And not every country is primed for that kind of activity. So the only other option then would be to vote for the resolution to accede to the United States of America, at which point I think we would want to focus more on an adaptation of a flag that is more of a global unification flag rather than the United States of America with extra states. Not that I've given this any thought or have any plans for world domination. Alright. Soliloquy over. Oh, wait. Let's read chat some more. The new Nike ad, just don't do it. Exactly. We will find you something, and yes, it does. Yes, I'm sure between all the people in America, we can figure out a neat design that'll work for everybody. All right. So, Mexico City. And then I think we will be able to move on to other
Several
news.
hundred people gathered here in the center of Mexico City for a vigil for the 6 Al Jazeera journalists killed by Israeli forces. We've been hearing chants calling for Mexico to break relations with Israel, calling for a free Palestine. And there's a special resonance here to the killing of journalists. Mexico is the most dangerous place for journalists outside of a war zone. Dozens have been killed in recent years with complete impunity. So journalists here understand firsthand.
Actually, speaking of that, has Claudia not addressed any of that? I thought for sure Claudia did stuff about that.
Risks of doing their jobs.
I think people understand that impunity in these killings is the factor that unites all of those regional pieces of violence. And
sure, it's the cartels, but hasn't Claudia addressed that?
People understand that attacks on journalism are universal, and the consequences for democracy, for freedom.
But according to this journalist, she's making it sound like it's still an ongoing problem that hasn't been dealt with or addressed.
Press are universal.
But while today's vigil is not about violence against Mexican journalists, the message here tonight is not entirely dissimilar. And that is a call to anyone who will listen, not to remain silent on these killings, to ensure they don't remain impune, and to continue pressuring governments and public opinion alike to denounce the actions of the State of Israel. Mexico City may be thousands of kilometers away from Gaza, but the Mexican journalists present at this event here tonight are determined to ensure that the deaths of their Palestinian colleagues are condemned and mourned this side of the world. Julia Galliano, Al Jazeera, Mexico City.
All right. So lots of Latin America, a little bit of the Middle East, and America are all coming together in the unified front to condemn Israel and their atrocities. But now is the time to push, to keep these actions going steady. Yes, I'm loving it too. I definitely am. Oh wait. Oh shit, there are still a couple more. South Africa.
Media workers have held a vigil to honor the Al Jazeera journalists killed in an Israeli strike on Sunday.
Blood on your hands! Blood on your hands!
They're calling for accountability and justice for their deaths. South Africa, of course, has filed a complaint at the International Court of Justice accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza. South African officials have long been critical of Israel's actions in the occupied territories. Famida Miller has more now from Cape Town.
Well, if any country would and should be, it is South Africa, who has undergone apartheid for decades and is still recovering from those acts and atrocities that were committed during apartheid. It's literally the example that is used in the same sentence and the same breath as the Holocaust. So it's good to see that they are in fact active, and it's right there, apartheid. It's in their signs too. No apartheid and freedom for Gaza. Or freedom, well, apartheid is the breeding ground for genocide.
Journalists in South Africa have come out to the St. George's Cathedral in Cape Town. And
also true, a lot of South Africans that are white are showing up too, even though they are the, apartheiders.
In South Africa, specifically during the decades of apartheid. The people here are protesting the murder of Al Jazeera journalist Anas al-Sharif, and we see it in the placards here, including this one here. Your voice was louder than their bombs. They're paying attention to the work done by Palestinian journalists in documenting this genocide. People here have condemned what Israel has done. They want the entry of international journalists into Gaza in addition.
But they are kind of like white people in the U.S. Exactly. They are exactly like white people in the U.S. The descendants of the colonizer.
Those many years ago under apartheid. So this really resonates with me.
I think it's unacceptable that there have been around 270 Palestinian journalists that have been killed by Israel with impunity. There has been absolutely no justice for these crimes.
Civil society,
which is true, absolutely accurate.
Wants more action.
I've got a special call to the South African journalists to pressurize our president to go back to the ICJ to gain provisional measures, telling the ICJ that starvation is being used as a means of genocide inside Gaza.
The South African government has previously condemned the killing of journalists in Gaza.
Very good signs, in fact.
When Shireen
A lot of the other ones were in languages I'm not familiar with, so I can't speak to those. But I imagine most of the themes have been similar.
We also heard from the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, who had said that documenting the truth is a revolutionary act. We do expect protests like this to continue in Cape Town in the coming days, where people continue to call for an end to the genocide in Gaza. Famida Miller, Al Jazeera, Cape Town.
Very nice. And then Britain, Denmark, France, and Europe. Which is also assuring that, you know, there's European countries doing this shit too.
It's just like our new
because they're the ones that are aiding and abetting right now.
Okay, here we are. Let's head to the United Nations right now. The Slovenian ambassador to the UN is delivering a statement on Gaza on behalf of all 5 European members of the Security Council.
Greece and Slovenia call for today's urgent meeting of the Security Council on the situation in Gaza. We condemn the government of Israel's decision to further expand its military operations in Gaza. This plan risks violating international humanitarian law. We call on Israel.
There's nothing risk about it. It is violating international humanitarian law. It is war crimes. There is no risk. It is actively being engaged upon. If you're gonna fucking call it out, call it the fuck out. Jesus Christ.
To urgently reverse this decision and not to implement it. And we reiterate that any attempts at annexation or of settlement extension violate international law. Expanding military operations will only endanger the lives of all civilians in Gaza, including the remaining hostages, and result in further...
Honestly, fuck off about the fucking hostages. This hasn't been about the hostages at any fucking point in time. And the fact that you're talking about the hostages as like a way to appeal to the mercy of Israel that is itself engaging in genocide. What the fuck? Why do we have the United Nations? Why? I genuinely want to know. Show me how this action right here benefits anyone in the world, let alone the Palestinians. This cowardly piece of shit from whatever country is absolutely a vile example of neoliberalism in the world. And this is infuriating to listen to. What the fuck? He's Danish? Fuck you. And I hope Denmark comes and sticks their foot up your ass. I hope you get protested so hard for being such a feckless goddamn coward.
Suffering. Just this week, the Security Council heard a harrowing testimony from Itai David, the brother of Eviatar David, who was cruelly taken hostage by Hamas on 7th of October. And has been held in atrocious conditions in Gaza.
Are you fucking serious? Is this piece of shit quoting an Israeli hostage as an example
for over 22 months? His briefing was a stark reminder that the suffering of the remaining hostages and their families must end.
So you're phrasing the end of this occupation and this action and all this other stuff from the stance that it is the victims of that are the hostages are the victims. And that's why it needs to end. This fucking guy. No, we're not listening to that shit. The fucking audacity. The audacity to sit here and condemn Israel while parroting the very arguments Israel makes as justification. What are you supposed to say to that? What can you say to that? The hostages are starving because Gazans are starving. Exactly. Every other hostage that has been interviewed from Hamas has been literally saying nothing but the best things about Hamas soldiers. That Hamas went out of their way to protect them from Israeli bombing. Went out of their way to shield the prisoners, the hostages, with their own bodies. Sacrificing themselves in some cases to save the hostages. And you're going to use that against Hamas? That the hostages even exist? Hamas has gone out of its way to say, we will give you all of the hostages. Stop ethnically cleansing my people. And Israel has ignored that. And this Danish motherfucker hasn't acknowledged that part either, and probably won't in that speech. That's unbelievable. Wow, never mind. I thought these were going to be protests, not the United Nations, showing us how fucking useless they are. Exactly, Anna. Well, actually, it's up here. Exactly, Anna. The families are blaming Israel because it is Israel who is, in fact, at fault. So this is the first stream in a long time where we focused almost exclusively on Israel and Palestine. Let's see. It is so fucking small. Let me open the stream list again on my other monitor so I can actually see the fucking videos we're trying to watch here. Okay, so tariffs are taking effect. Oh, great. The Trump administration's had a role in Israel and Gaza, which, again, I think we did discuss that to a degree. Not from a video, but just outright knowledge. Jesus. All of these videos have to do with... Wow. So, the UK has arrested hundreds of people for being pro-Palestinian. Okay, so let's try the Trump will meet Putin. And that's right here, the UK police arresting hundreds of... let's just cover that real quick. Of course we need an ad.
People with chronic nasal congestion and sinus infections would be stuck with either Band-Aids that don't solve your problem.
They came in their hundreds, as they said they would, despite the threat of arrest and a possible prison sentence of up to 14 years. They carried signs professing their support for Palestine Action, a group designated a terror organization by the British government.
Which, again, should tell you everything you need to know about the British government if they are trying to declare supporting Palestine a terrorist act. There could be nothing less terroristic than advocating for the end of a genocide against a given people. Does that mean everybody who went to the No DAPL protests are terrorists because they were advocating for indigenous rights and lands and treaties that protected those things? Am I a terrorist because I went to No DAPL? Am I a terrorist? Is everybody else who went there a terrorist? Because according to the UK, I would be. Granted, we're not in the UK, but that's kind of the point. That's the symbolism, the standard, the stage that they are setting for other countries to follow if they want to crack down on these protests. So rather than embracing the humanitarian outcries and desires of the people, they are treating them as actual terrorists. So that is about as fucked up as it gets.
Message on T-shirts as they sat silently at the foot of the Mahatma Gandhi statue in Parliament Square, while others were angered by what they deemed as an assault to their freedom of speech.
Which it is, let's be very clear.
Down with 7 words on a sign and sit quietly. Then what does freedom of speech mean?
Some have already been arrested for taking part in previous protests, but returned, such as grandmother Manji Mansfield, apparently undeterred by the consequences.
This isn't the Britain that I grew up in. We're now living in an alternative universe, and I'm not going to accept it. So I'm frightened, but I'm more frightened of what will happen if I don't.
Exactly.
The largest gathering
exactly.
has been
honestly, that is why we are doing what we are doing now anyway. Why else would anyone risk their career, their futures, their livelihood, their jobs, their freedom to protest governments that have made it abundantly clear they will fuck you up, kill you, disappear you, capture you, kidnap you, and disappear you? What other possible reason would people have for going up against an oppressive state than the fact that the state is oppressive, and that is extremely fucking terrifying and should not be the way things are? And the fact that so many countries are being oppressive and engaging in fascist tactics is disturbing. And the fact that the responses are to terrorize the people and that the people are refusing to be terrorized is the only light at the end of the tunnel in these dark and extremely dangerous times. Did that not play?
Action since the group became a prescribed organisation, and judging from the numbers that have turned out this Saturday, it's also proving to be a challenge for the police themselves. The government says its ban aims to end acts such as this, the damaging of military aircraft at a British airbase.
Except that's bullshit, because if that was the case, if the acts were to prevent the sabotage of military equipment, then why would you arrest protesters and charge them under that fucking law in the first place?
Which the activist said was in protest against the UK refuelling of Israeli fighter jets. But it's done little to deter people determined to pledge their support. The number of arrests is likely to be a test for a police force and judiciary under strain from a backlog of cases and a decline in public investment. And containing the outrage against the ban is yet another hurdle facing authorities dealing with public anger that is yet to subside. So
and notice how they keep choosing women. They keep choosing to arrest women. I don't see them arresting men. I certainly don't see them trying to arrest men who are muscular either. They keep going after middle-aged women. Now, I'm not saying women are weak, but I am saying that there is a message by going after a gender that is perceived as weak and that has been historically silenced by authority. And the fact that this is what's happening and that it is being broadcast live and that there is zero whatsoever recognition of this action is deeply, deeply concerning and unfortunately on the fucking nose. You know, on cable, they sometimes have a 24/7 camera of what's going on in certain areas, cars driving by and all. The same should be to the day-to-day stuff going on in Gaza, so people can see the ghouls who are being, well, murderous scum. And quite frankly, that I don't disagree. But in fact, that is why they killed, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Not without looking at it. Anas al-Sharif. That's because he was reporting on it daily, literally in real time, and they killed him for that. So that is what it is. But suffice to say, all of these crackdowns, all of these judicial whatever, the government refusing to acknowledge the shift in public opinion and thinking they can just beat it out of the people is only going to fuel that fire and then result in more and more aggression, which can only lead to more civil unrest and instability, which is not what anybody in the world needs right now when we are this close to a powder keg of World War III in the first place. All right. So 31 videos regarding Palestine. That is a new record for us, I'm fairly certain. Let's see, I guess we'll cover the Ukrainian war a little bit.
Soon, millions of us will pay more for healthcare.
Which is at least an actual war, instead of a one-sided genocide conflict. And, of course, a 15-second unskippable ad. Yeah, this shit is infuriating.
Trump will hold a highly anticipated face-to-face summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska.
There is concern it may not lead to an end to Russia's 3.5-year-old war with Ukraine. Samantha Cortese joins us with a closer look at what's at stake. Sam.
Hi, Micah and Cher. Rather than push for a ceasefire, Russia has ramped up its military offensive. It broke through a Ukrainian defensive front, which could give Putin an edge ahead of Friday's meeting. Today, Russia increased fighting, breaking through Ukrainian front lines in the Donetsk region, an area Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia wants as part of a ceasefire deal.
I may say, lots of luck, keep fighting, or I may say we can make a deal.
The escalation is just days before Russian President Vladimir Putin and President Trump will meet in Anchorage, Alaska. The White House today calling the meeting
That's why Shanks earlier was talking about giving Alaska back to Russia. Oh, geez. Okay. That's witty, dude. That was actually really good. That was a very good quip. Russia has a stronger military, but Ukraine has U.S. on its side. But the thing is, the U.S. isn't actually allying with Ukraine. They're not overtly doing anything on behalf of Ukraine. It's just all of this tacit, barely sticking their toes in the water because Trump is so out of his depth. Even he recognizes he's out of his depth.
Exercise for President Trump to see where Russia stands.
Only one party that's involved in this war is going to be present. And so this is for the president to go and to get, again, a more firm and better understanding of how we can hopefully bring this war to an end.
But that's the point. You're meeting with Russia. You're a Russian asset. You have never actually pushed back against Russia at any point in time, not in this administration or the previous one. All you're going to do is capitulate. So, Russia's just going to continue to get what it wants until whatever that is. I don't know if they want all of Ukraine, if they just want to guarantee the natural resources. But at this point, Russia doesn't give a shit about American involvement, and America, under this administration, is definitely not willing to commit or capable of committing. Is that a muffin hat? No, it's a not knit, it's a crocheted beret that I got during one of the protests. That's a Medicare for All beret that I keep wearing to try and pay homage to Che Guevara and other freedom fighters.
Zelensky, who was ultimately not invited, says this meeting is an attempt to deceive the United States, to show face for negotiations, but continue the war on the ground in an attempt to take more land.
Which
we will
is
not allow this.
That is
I
probably
greatly value
exactly
the
true.
Determination with which President Trump is committed to bring an end to the killings in this war.
There'll be some
I thought that was Zelensky's actual voice. I was like, homie sounds really weird. I thought he had a different sounding voice, but it was the voiceover. My bad, guys.
Some changes in land.
Land swapping is a non-starter for Ukraine and its European allies, who would be threatened by further Russian occupation, according to Russia geopolitical expert Nigel Gould-Davies.
Russia's ambitions have very little to do with that, and it follows from that that the war cannot possibly be ended on a territorial basis.
President Trump says he will know within 2 minutes if there's a deal to be made to end the war. Cher, Micah, and Jean, over to you.
The White House has downplayed expectations ahead of President Donald Trump's upcoming summit with Russia's leader Vladimir Putin. As Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said, the meeting will be a listening exercise for President Trump. Meanwhile, Russian troops are closing in on a frontline city in eastern Ukraine. Newly released footage from the...
Okay, it's not to say that I don't give a shit about what's going on in Ukraine, but with all of the global affairs that are going on, that is the least pressing issue because fundamentally it is war. There is loss of life. I didn't break my cigar, did I? There is loss of life. It is a problem, but the way that it is being dealt with is at least somewhat following the rules of engagement. Yes, Russia was the one that initiated the aggression, but they haven't been, well, they have bombed civilian sector. I guess what I'm getting at is that the Ukraine-Russia situation is significantly less bombastic than what's going on in Palestine or any of the conflicts that keep erupting in India against, Pakistan? And what was it, Thailand and Cambodia? Like, those areas are rife for military expansion and further development. The Russian-Ukrainian thing, bad, yes, definitely bad, seems to be a more contained situation. So I'm not disregarding it, but it's not nearly as volatile. That was the word I was looking for.
Oh, wow. She's been looking for an insight in that data forever. Oh.
Wow. 15-second unskippable ads. Go figure. 2 unskippable ads. Go fucking figure.
Says the US is ready to support us after a call.
If Putin is nice to him, Trump will cream his pants and give Putin whatever he wants. True. Zoran Mamdani looks like he will be another AOC. Well, fun fact, I wasn't a very strong or warm supporter of Zoran because I've met him before in person, and he was very lackluster in person. He was afraid to be associated with me, if that's any indication. He was afraid of being associated with me. And I am not even nearly a fraction of relevant as I was in 2017. And he was afraid of being associated with me last year. And now that he's running for mayor and he's, he's doing some things like turning down, billionaires and some other things for show. But then he is, walking back some of his rhetoric. He's not being as outspoken about certain issues. Like, I think it's very clear at this point that he is a career-driven politician rather than a candidate of, for, and by the people. If he's afraid to be seen with me, then I'm doing something right. I won't disagree with that. I mean... Hiring establishment people to work with him. Exactly. It's not a good look.
Today by the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and chaired by the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Moscow has already dismissed the European diplomatic initiative as insignificant. Well, the German Chancellor talked to the media in the last hour and said that sovereignty of Ukraine had to be
now he has
respected.
Warren. Exactly.
He also said more pressure would be needed if there was no movement from Russia.
The American president knows that if he wants to reach peace in Ukraine, he can rely on his European and Ukrainian partners to work on that together. Ukraine has to sit at the table. We want to make sure that the right chronology happens.
Okay, I guess we're not going to get much more out of that.
The heat is relentless.
So remember, actually it was Shanks again who brought up the cuts for USAID and all that. Well, this is that coming home to roost.
The land is dry and yields very little. This is the Kakuma refugee camp in northwest Kenya. And for the hundreds of thousands of people here who have escaped violence and drought, food aid...
Al Jazeera. Way to go.
Mawazo is a Congolese refugee who says she can't do without these rations, which she gets every 2 months.
If there's no more food, I don't know what I'll do. There are no jobs here. I have no business. There's no other alternative for me.
The World Food Program says
And look, USA. That is literally some of the last food packages that was sent to Kenya that were leftovers.
Is running out. Most of the food comes from the US, but after USAID cuts, shipments have stopped. Now only the most vulnerable, families headed by children, the elderly, pregnant women, and disabled people will get rations. 30% of the population will get nothing at all.
We have refugees who are doing business, and we have refugees who've just recently arrived. We have child-headed households. So we are looking at each and everyone based on who they are and trying to see if we can channel our assistance based on what their need is and not necessarily because they are a refugee.
Many refugees say this is unfair, but those tasked with helping say it's the only solution.
This is just a small fraction of food that is needed to feed hundreds of thousands of refugees, but the supplies are running low, so aid workers have to make difficult decisions about who gets the food and who doesn't.
Lonnie Michael Goni says his family will get nothing. He says he has a disability and can't fend for his children.
I will not survive, and even if you see those children, there is no place where do I take them.
The government is pushing for what it calls Shurika Plan, urging refugees and local communities to share what little there is to reduce aid dependency. But with resources so scarce, it's a delicate balancing act.
Now we are saying to God, only God they help us. We are not have anything to help us.
So, I mean, what do you say to this? On the one hand, Kenya doesn't have as much arable land as other countries do, which is a problem. Not every country on earth can grow crops, or at the very least, cannot grow crops to sustain its actual population. That's just a reality. That is just an unfortunate reality. You can't grow crops in Arizona. You can't grow crops in Nevada. I think you can grow something in Colorado, but not nearly as much as you can in, say, California and the Midwest, right? Most of Texas doesn't, or maybe half of Texas doesn't have arable land either. That's just the reality. And so Kenya, on top of that issue, is also dealing with refugees from the South Sudan. And the United States is cutting off food and other aid supplies. And now they are going to be facing starvation in the same exact way Palestinians are facing starvation. But instead of there being any coverage in America or Western news sources about this, there's the only saving grace about Palestine is the fact that it is being discussed. But it's not in Africa. So how many months are going to go by before we are reporting about the final solution being executed in Palestine and the starvation of African nations starting to take effect? 3 months, 5 months, middle of next year, end of next year? It's literally a ticking clock of when are these other countries going to start suffering in the same exact way as Palestine is. Again, we produce enough food on planet Earth to sustain 20 billion people. But due to capitalism and the rise of fascism in Europe and North America again, we dispose of that food waste rather than, redistributing it to countries that are in need. Because of profit, because of capitalism, because of just racism, colonization, whatever you want to call it, we do not need to let a single human being on this earth starve. There is no reason for it. We produce enough for more than double the population, probably closer to triple the population of Earth. And the fact that so many countries refuse to acknowledge that fact, and that so many countries are not picking up and stepping up, and the fact that so many citizens are not holding their countries accountable and not forcing capitalism to let go of its grip and its boot on our throat is the literal most avoidable death and suffering that the human race has ever encountered. This isn't the 1900s when industrialization was still being perfected. This isn't even the 1960s when electronics were starting to be invented. This isn't even the 1980s when globalization was just getting started and electronics and micro manufacturing started becoming more utilized. This isn't even the early 90s or the late 90s when industrialization had a second renaissance, or the digital age that began in the mid 2000s. We do not, under any circumstances, have any excuses not to provide food, shelter, medicine, and education to every single human being on planet Earth. And that's a fucking fact. And the fact that it even needs to be debated, or that it is debated, or that there's an argument, and that there are people with money and resources who choose to throw a wrench in those arguments and debates, is the entire fucking problem. And as your president, no future necessary, I am going to put a stop to this bullshit as quickly and as aggressively as possible. Because why? It is the right fucking thing to do. That's why. Let's see. Right, they're letting the rest of the food rot in the United States. I would not want to be in that position. Thanks, Marco Rubio, which, thank God he never ended up becoming president. We would have different degrees of this. Same thing with RFK Jr. The thing is, with RFK Jr., we know what now that his presidency would have looked like. It would look exactly like what's happening now, except probably even worse. I hope that Mali and Burkina Faso can help Kenya. Exactly. I hope this is what triggers the One Africa movement across Africa to help countries like Kenya and Sudan and all the other countries that may be suffering famine or on the verge of suffering famine. All right, let's see what else we can cover here. Oh, Lebanon?
What if you could taste the movies?
We turned that idea into an 11...
I swear, these ads, they say they're 6 seconds long, but that's the longest 6 seconds I have ever encountered. And I try to hold my breath, I try and hold planks, and those 6 seconds are pretty fucking long too, but it seems like these ads have like, really very, very slow seconds.
At the Beirut airport, not by high-ranking representatives of the Lebanese state, but by members of Iran's ally Hezbollah. It was telling for the state of relations between the two countries. The head of Iran's top national security body, Ali Larijani, was among Iranian officials who...
I'll give Al Jazeera this much credit. They're doing all of their reporting and they're creating all of these videos, and now they have a bright red banner that says Israel is murdering journalists. That's a good fucking start. I think every single news network in the world needs to have a bright red ribbon condemning Israel and highlighting what it is they're fucking doing.
Who, in recent days, said they opposed the Lebanese government's decision.
I did not know that about Salma Hayek and Shakira.
In Beirut, he used diplomatic language, but he didn't back
Allies?
Allies? Foreign countries should not direct demands to Lebanon. The Lebanese people can make their own decisions, and we respect any decision the Lebanese government makes in cooperation with the factions.
Larijani was referring to Hezbollah, whose supporters greeted him at the airport. Despite being militarily weakened by Israel, Hezbollah is still a political force here and is resisting the Lebanese state's decision to fully disarm it.
It's the least we can do to come out and welcome him, because there is no country in the world other than the Islamic Republic of Iran that stood with us.
But the new leadership in Lebanon told the Iranian official there is no turning back on its decision. No party can carry weapons and seek foreign support as leverage, was what President Joseph Aoun said. He also called Iran's statements on plans to disarm Hezbollah unconstructive. Before arriving in Beirut, Larijani was in Baghdad, where Iran's allies are also under pressure. But Larijani signed a security agreement with the Iraqi government, a deal the U.S. said would turn Iraq into a client state of Iran.
So not only is Israel committing genocide against Palestinians, the West is already trying to reignite the global war on terrorism in the Middle East by calling alliances between Middle Eastern countries. Iran's going to turn Afghanistan or Iraq, I believe it was, into a vassal state. Like, really? Really? We're gonna stir that pot some more. Like, Desert Storm and SHIELD wasn't enough. The global war on terror, which lasted most of 24 years, wasn't enough. Now we gotta stir that hornet's nest again? What the fuck? Unfortunately not, especially since Salma is married to one of the worst billionaires. Well, I guess it's a fun fact that they're Lebanese then. I'm not sure if this is true, but Red Overlord is looking to replace PBS with Prager University, and a kid's show in mind is Columbus saying slavery is fine and better than being killed. So I think Prager U, that might be a thing, because when we were doing the Project 2025 discussion, they were in fact creating children's content that whitewashes history and just completely rewrites history. I think they had Booker T. Washington in there as well, where he was like, yeah, I was a slave, but, it wasn't so bad for me, and a bunch of other shit along those lines. So I don't remember if that was part of the Project 2025 900 and some odd pages, but I wouldn't be surprised if that is, in fact, something that's going on, or that will go on.
For those who believe Larijani's regional tour is part of an effort by Iran, if not to revive, at the least, to send a message that its so-called axis of resistance still exists despite suffering setbacks. It also comes days before U.S. envoy Tom Barrack is expected back in the Lebanese capital for his fourth visit in recent weeks to a country which has long been a battleground for outside powers.
Larijani's visit is seen as an indication that Tehran is not giving up its influence here. It's also seen as a message that Iran can't be sidelined in any decision regarding Hezbollah. Zana Khudr, Al Jazeera, Beirut.
The United States has presented Lebanon with a proposal for disarming Hezbollah by the end of the year. Phase 1 requires...
there it is. There it is. America sticking its nose in the Middle East again, where it does not fucking belong. So, we're not going to listen to that shit.
Some may find distressing.
40-year-old Shamsul Alam from Butidong in Myanmar's western Rakhine state says he still carries the nightmare of last year, when he witnessed and documented the gruesome killings and crimes committed by the Arakan army. 2 weeks ago, with nothing but fear in his heart, he fled to Bangladesh with 12 family members, including his wife, children, and relatives.
I risked my life to document the dead, searching for my relatives, among them 30 members of my family. I miss them deeply. At least through these images, I can see the remains, hold on to proof, and one day use it to help my community seek justice.
In a news conference on Tuesday, an Arakan army spokesperson denied responsibility for the massacre.
If you see the allegations being raised now, carefully look at the photos. The helmets of the terrorist military council and the shoes on the dead bodies, these are the evidence. The bodies shown in the currently circulated photos are the corpses of soldiers from the terrorist military council who were killed.
Rights activist Razia Sultana, who says she lost close family members in Myanmar last August, is calling for urgent international action.
This must be investigated. These are not acts of war, but ongoing massacres. They've committed such atrocities before, and we brought the Burmese army crimes to the ICC and ICJ. Now this...
Which are apparently doing fuck all because, evidently, they don't do anything. Again, this is a completely unrelated event. This is a completely unrelated occurrence on a different side of the world between two entirely different countries that have no influence from the United States whatsoever. And even when they brought the complaints to the ICC, nothing fucking happened. And they're still dealing with this. And that's the point. That's the fucking problem. We have all of these atrocities happening across the globe year after year, month after month, week after week, and they are brought to the United Nations. And holy fuck, what was that? Something just went static. And that's scary. Alright, anyway, and the ICC does nothing. Not in Myanmar, not between Bangladesh and whomever, not between Cambodia and Thailand. I think that's who it was. None of the India versus Pakistan. None of the Iran versus... Well, actually, I guess that was Iran and Israel. You know, and I don't know of all of the global conflicts, but there are clearly a bunch of them. Africa is barely mentioned. Latin America is barely mentioned. What purpose does the United Nations serve? What purpose? If they are not going to actually enforce these complaints or investigate them or hold these people accountable. And the response is always something to the effect of, well, we have the ability to do the trials, but the countries have to be willing to consent to them. Then you don't have any authority. If the United Nations can't pluck a tyrant out of their country and drag their ass to The Hague to undergo trial, then what power and authority and influence does the United Nations have other than holding money and resources over the heads of starving, desperate countries who underwent either natural disaster, civil war, or famine, or some other thing? It seems to me that the only purpose the United Nations serves is to terrorize, abuse, and take advantage of impoverished countries. Because every other situation under the sun, they are seemingly powerless to do anything about. And that's a fucking problem. That is not okay. All this shit happening in the UN is doing nothing. I literally go to the Al Jazeera YouTube channel in order to find out anything happening outside the US. Our media doesn't cover anything happening in any place other than the US and sometimes Europe, which is true, which is 100% true. You might be able to go on the Fox News or MSNBC or CBS website and go to global news, but they're not going to cover things. They're not going to cover things nearly as effectively as Al Jazeera does, because they just don't fucking care. And societally speaking, Americans don't care. Hence why they don't bother with it. And honestly, that's a pretty good way to wrap up. And we got our theme music playing, and we got all this good stuff going. So why don't we close up our stream by saying this. Today was an extremely difficult, emotionally raw, and depressing stream. I'm not gonna lie, I am very sorry for that. I'm definitely not that streams need to necessarily be entertaining and uplifting, but it's brutal to sit through 3 hours of death, genocide, massacre, atrocities, and fascism. It is 100% agree. That hard for me to deal with, hard for you to want to watch and listen in the evening when you're getting ready to go to bed so you can go to work tomorrow and try and pretend that the world is not literally on fire. It's probably why political content creators struggle to gain a following, because they have to try and report without depressing their audience, which then will make them not want to watch future content. I, however, am a politician, and I'm trying to convey sincerity and authenticity. So, sucks for me, I guess, for not being a grifting piece of shit. That also being said, thank you. Truly thank you for joining us in the stream and sticking with us. And I encourage you to like and share and let your friends and family know, your coworkers know that there is at least one dumb motherfucker in the United States of America trying to fight for the right reasons the right way. And that dumb motherfucker is me. So, with that, I will see you all tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. We will be doing Recap Thursdays, where we cover everything that has either happened since Tuesday or even, God forbid, today. And it'll be a mix of national and international news. So on that note, y'all have a great rest of your night. President Ronan out.